Hello guys, welcome to the channel. Today we are talking about what if Issei was the son of Great-red and Ophis. Part 4. Since the dawn of time, Ophis and Great-red have been at odds with one another. But, what happens when through an inexplicable twist of fate, a new being was born through their conflict? Follow Issei, the third dragon god, on his journey as the world will not be same again. If you enjoy the video, please like and subscribe, it will help us make more videos for you. Now let's begin. To go to class. No doubt Rias and the others would have a bunch of questions for her after she stormed out of the club room like that. She then thought about asking Issei to join her later. Issei, how about coming by the club room later? She asked as she looked at him with puppy eyes, hoping he would agree. Of course, after seeing those eyes, there was no way for him to decline. Damn it, why is she doing that? She knows I can't say no to her, Issei complained. After sighing, he answered, sure, I'll join you after school. He had no choice but to oblige her. God damn it, she had him in the palm of her hands and she knows it. He then felt Eikeno's hand press against his face as she quickly gave him a kiss on the lips, then twirled around heading towards her class, but not before looking back and waving "I'll see you soon, Issei-kun," he heard her say as she disappeared from his sight. His face still blushing from her action, but he thought to himself, worth it. Unfortunately, his problems had only started as he made his way into his classroom. He was bombarded by questions by the other students. What is your relationship with Eikeno-sama? Are you both dating? Lucky bastard. I didn't know he and Eikeno-sama knew each other. Seems like they are dating. Did you see how Eikeno-sama held him? The majority of the female students were mostly curious about their relationship, while the male students were jealous of him. Some were also pissed off, but none of them dared to say something because they were scared to get beat up by him. Matsuda was actually one of the students that was both scared and jealous of Issei. He was scared because he was one of the only people who knew that Issei was in fact a member of the strongest species known to exist, a dragon, and if what Drake had told them yesterday was true, then he was more powerful than all of them combined, which shook the core of everyone in the club room. So, when Eikeno stormed off from the club room to go after Issei, everyone was extremely fearful for her safety, and even though Rias did not mention it, everyone could tell from her worried state that she was praying to the Maris for her queen's safety and hoping Eikeno would not do anything reckless. All that worry seemed useless when Eikeno came hand in hand together with said dragon with the brightest expression they had ever seen on her before. No doubt Rias will try to probe her for answers and maybe invite Issei once more to their club room. This brings us to his jealous side. If the two are in fact dating, then of course he would be extremely jealous of Issei for dating one of the two great one-summers of the school. Heck, everyone was jealous of Issei at the moment. Eikeno is no doubt one of the hottest women he had ever laid eyes on, with a body that rivals that of Rias, and if Motoama's reading was accurate, which it probably is, has a breast size that even exceeds Rias and is the only female in campus that possess a bust with triple digits. In fact, she was one of the women he was desperately hoping to have in his harem if possible. However, if she was indeed dating Issei, then that option was definitely off the table. Despite the fact that he is a massive pervert, he would never go after someone who was already taken, not after what happened with his parents. Case in point, he was still very jealous of his new classmate, but none more so than his friend Motoama, who was practically screaming with rage in front of his face. Die you! Matsuda could tell that Issei was starting to get annoyed and was honestly a bit fearful for his friend's life. He tried to separate his friend from Issei, but to no avail. Hey man, I think you should calm down. Motoama was clearly not pleased and continued spouting insult after insult against Issei. Ha, no way. He has to answer us. How the hell did he seduce and ensnare of the two great one summers of this school and on his first day no less? It's not fair. Motoama shouted with comical tears flushing down his face. Issei, however, was starting to get a bit annoyed at his antics. He could understand the questions being directed at him, but this guy was taking things a bit too far. This guy is really starting to annoy me. What the heck is his problem? Issei thought as he felt multiple veins popping on his forehead. Could you please get out of the way? Class is about to start. He said as politely as he could, but from his tone, everyone could feel that he was starting to get pissed off. Coming to the rescue were his female classmates who started shouting, "Hey, you two! Quit bothering Issei-kun with your shenanigans," one said, pointing at both Motoama and Matsuda. That's right, several others spoke at the same time. Ha, me too. I didn't do anything, shouted a surprised Matsuda, since it was true. Sure, he was super jealous of Issei, but he only tried to hold back his friend. No good deed goes unpunished, and it seemed he just learned the meaning of it. It's not fair. Motoama was still screaming, still being held back by his friend. It took a while, but soon, Motoama finally calmed down after Matsuda promised to lend him a very special magazine he's been saving up, causing the others to look at him in disgust, knowing exactly what type of magazine it was. With a look of gratitude towards everyone, including Matsuda, he finally took a seat. Off to the side, he noticed the blonde devil boy, his name was Kibayuoto if he recalled correctly, who nodded with a small bow of the head as if to both greet him as well as apologize for their classmates' antics. Issei simply smiled and returned his greeting with a nod of his own. He understood that teenagers would be teenagers. With a sigh, he got ready for lessons as the teacher entered class. After the lessons ended, Issei made his way out of the classroom. Just as he exited, he noticed Akeno, who was waiting near the entrance of his class with what seemed to be a package in her hands. Akeno, how come you are here? Is everything all right? He asked. She nodded. Yes, everything is fine, Issei-kun. I just stopped by to ask if you wanted to have lunch together, she said, looking him in the eyes. He looked at the clock and sure enough it was indeed lunchtime. Oh, it's lunchtime already. Issei could not believe how fast the time went by. Were you so busy daydreaming that you forgot what time lunch started? Akeno giggled with what seemed to be a mock scolding look. Ha ha, it would seem so, senpai. Issei decided to go along with her, but then noticed her pouting. It's Akeno, you don't need to add senpai, she said as she bent over, giving Issei a clear view of her gifted breasts as they bounced. Oh my god, I can't believe they bounce, he shouted happily in his mind. Okay, Akeno-chan, he called her the way he is used to. He really only called her senpai since they were in school, and apparently that's how everyone treats those of higher grade. For Akeno, it's not that she hated him calling her senpai, but hearing him call her by her first name without any sort of honorific always made her happy, because it showed how close they were to one another. Although, as a senpai, she could ask him to do several things. Those thoughts made her blush as she grabbed Issei's wrist and decided to lead him to the roof to have their lunch. Let's go have lunch. When several people saw her behaving this way, they questioned the change in her characteristics. Normally, Akeno was graceful and calm, but at that moment, she was acting like an excited young lady who was, well, going out on a date, and they had never seen her act like this before. After sitting down, they both began to converse with one another as they ate. Most of the conversation was about everyone's reaction to them being together. Akeno found it funny while Issei was bothered by the constant questions. Seriously, why did everyone have to take interest in his personal or romantic life? By the way, are your friends all right with you being with me? I don't think I made a very good first impression when they introduced themselves to me, and I could feel they perceived me more of a threat than anything, so I don't know how they reacted to you coming to school with me. Issei asked worriedly. He did not believe that Rias and her peerage had a very nice image of him, especially after finding out he was a dragon. Despite doing their best to hide it, he could feel their fear rise when he told them his race. Dragons have always been feared for their strength and power, and being faced with one of unknown origins is always scary, so he couldn't really blame them for thinking like that. Akeno interrupted his train of thought. At first, they were worried. I did explain that you were a very nice person and that I knew you since childhood, but it was when I told them that I would trust you with my life that they decided to relax a bit. Although, I'm pretty sure Rias is going to want to talk to you some more when you come by the club room, she said, taking another bite of her fried chicken. Issei was taken by surprise when Akeno stated that she would trust him with her life. It was certainly unexpected, but soon his surprise turned into inner joy because it showed how much Akeno faith and trust she placed on him. I see. He smiled before continuing. Did you tell them who my parents are, by any chance? He asked, the question on his mind. He wouldn't blame her even if she did tell them, understanding that since she is part of a peerage, she would have to tell the truth. Even his parents wouldn't blame her. He knew that for a fact, but he just wanted to ask her to see if she did. The response he got, however, was different than what he thought. No, she answered in a serious tone. I only told them that we were childhood friends and that our families used to spend a lot of time together. Rias accepted what I said and did not question me about your parents' identity. And even if she did, I would never reveal it without their permission. They trusted my family with their secret, and I will never betray that trust. He could feel that she was speaking with absolute resolution. She would never reveal their identities even if hell froze over. He smiled at this. I see, he said before slowly enveloping his hand with hers, their finger intertwining, causing a blush to spur from Akeno. Thank you, Akeno-chan. Like I said before, we do not really mind if you need to tell them about. I don't want to cause an unnecessary rift between you and your friends. He continued with what seemed to Akeno a tinge of worry. Akeno returned a smile. You don't need to worry about that, Issei-kun. Despite her curiosity, Rias is a very understandable person and would respect my decision for keeping what I know a secret. She is unlike most devils who would command their servants to obey. She treats us as a family and we treat her the same way. The others are also very trustworthy. They understand that everyone has a secret or two they wish to keep for themselves, and they respect my privacy. It is why I treasure each and every one of them, she explained to Issei. This seemed to calm his worry down a notch, which was what she intended in the first place. Very well. If you trust them that much, then it is only fair that I give them the same courtesy. From what you told me, she saved your life when you were on the run, something that should have been our responsibility to begin with. I could never thank her and your friends enough from providing you with a home during all these years, so, at the very least, I would like to offer my gratitude to them when next we meet, he said. Yufufu, thank you, Issei-kun. She reached out, extending one hand as she cupped his cheek, using said hand to bring him ever so closer. Both of their faces inching ever closer until their lips overlapped as they shared another kiss between them. After separating, they both noticed that lunchtime was running out, so they started packing their stuff. Akeno was the first to get up. "I'll see you after school at the club room," she said, leaving the premises as the end bell for lunch came. Eventually, school ended and Issei made his way towards the old school building until he found himself outside the orc club room. "Well, here we go," he thought to himself, taking a small breath, mentally preparing himself before he finally knocked on the door. "Come in." He heard the voice of the crimson-haired princess. Opening the door, Issei saw all of the orc members waiting for him. Rias was seated in her office while Kiba was right behind her, acting as her bodyguard. Kiba smiled and nodded to greet Issei, something he returned himself. He then spotted the mascot of Kyo, Koneko Tuya, sitting on the sofa eating her candies. Right across from her was Matsuda, who was sprayed out on the sofa, tired from another day of school. Now that he got a good look at him, Issei could feel a very familiar energy coming from Matsuda. It resembled that of a dragon but was very faint. A sacred gear, perhaps. He remembered Tanin's lessons about sacred gears and recalled that some of them had beings sealed within them which allowed the user to use said beings' power as their own. Although, those types of sacred gears were the rarest and would most likely be a Longinus. Before he could think of anything else, he felt his hand being pulled, wrenching him from his thoughts. He did not need to guess who it was, as he saw a very familiar black-haired Yamato Nadeshiko appearing before him. "Welcome to our club room, Issei." Akeno smiled, as she led him inside. Everybody present, except Issei, were surprised when they saw how bubbly Akeno became. Akeno led Issei to be seated on the sofa next to Koneko. "Please take a seat. I'll be right back, Yufufu." She winked at him as she entered the kitchen to prepare tea and snacks. Watching their interaction caused everyone to relax. Although they understood that he was an acquaintance of Akeno's, they could not help but feel a bit scared considering his identity and the fact that he was very powerful. Rias smiled in relief when she noticed Akeno's cheery mood, if she could call it that. When she had run off from the club room to follow Issei, even though she told everyone not to worry, she could not help but be fearful that something was going to happen to Akeno, so it was a major relief to see her back again. Not only that, she was acting as though she had the time of her life. Rias looked at Issei as he sat quietly near her rook, waiting patiently. Akeno trusts this man with her life, so whoever he is, he cannot possibly be a bad guy, she thought to herself. "Good evening, Hyouda Issei. Although my queen already welcomed you, it is only proper that I do so myself as the president of a cult research club. Therefore, I would like to welcome you to our humble abode." She welcomed him with a smile. Issei turned his attention towards her in order to answer. "Thank you very much, Rias Gremuri. I know that our last meeting did not go very well, but you are all Akeno's friends and she trusts you all very much, and that is enough for me to know that you are nice people. I look forward to getting to know you better and getting along with you all," he said, bowing his head. "Indeed. We also hope to get along with you, Hyouda Issei," she said politely. "Since we are going to be friends, you don't need to call me by my full name. You can call me however you'd like, since I do not mind," he suggested to her, as well as her peerage, and she decided to take him up on his offer. "Very well, Issei-san." Akeno soon brought out a few beverages and snacks. She immediately sat next to her crush, surprising everyone yet again. "Now then, Issei-san, before we begin, I would like to ask you if you would be interested in joining our club." Rias offered him an invitation to her club. Issei was taken aback by her offer. "Is something the matter?" she asked after seeing his surprised look. "Oh. Sorry, nothing's wrong. It's just. I did not expect you to invite so soon after meeting. Issei expected her to first get to know him to see if he was trustworthy before even asking him to join. Yufu, there's no need to be so shocked. It's true that under normal circumstances, I would take my time to find out if the person I'm inviting is trustworthy enough as well, not a danger to me, my peerage and this city before allowing them to join. However, Akeno has already informed us that you were her childhood friend, and that is enough for me to know that you are trustworthy. In addition, if all the rumors I hear going around the school are true, then the two of you are more than friends, so I'm pretty sure Akeno would love to have you here. She explained, looking at her queen, who blushed when she inferred their relationship. Rias could not help but giggle at her queen's reactions, never having seen her like this. Issei, for his part, understood her reasoning, and to be truthful, he wanted to join the club in order to spend more time with Akeno. He had missed her terribly ever since he thought she died during the incident, so he thought of this as a chance. In addition, he did not need to look to his side to know that Akeno was hoping for the very same thing. After a moment of thinking, he finally answered, "Very well, I will join. Please take care of me." Rias was very pleased with his response. Although she did not show it, she considered him a peerage candidate. Dragons were beings of immeasurable strength. They possessed overwhelming might. Their scales provided an impenetrable defense, and they were largely resistant to many forms of magic. The fact that it took all three factions to suppress the two heavenly dragons illustrates the overwhelming might dragons can possess. It's no wonder that even the mightiest of gods feared these creatures. It was this strength that she desperately wanted in her peerage for the future. On the other hand, Akeno was overwhelmed with joy as she embraced his arm. Issei simply smiled at her. Rias got up from her seat and made her way in front of him, lifting her hand for a handshake. "In that case, once again, I welcome you, Issei Hyuda, to our club. It is a pleasure to have you on board." Issei also got up from his seat and returned the handshake. After they separated, Rias decided to reintroduce her members to Issei. "Now that we got that out of the way, allow me reintroduce all our members. Up first is my knight who attend your class, so I'm pretty sure you are well acquainted already." She gestured towards her knight, who approached Issei with his usual smile. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Issei-kun. Let's get along," he said, offering a handshake which Issei gladly returned. "Likewise, Kiba-san. Next is the rook of my peerage, Koneko Tuya." She gestured towards the school's mascot, sitting on the sofa. She was, as usual, busy munching on her sweet. Hearing Rias introduce her, she turned her focus to Issei. "Hello," that was all she said before returning to eating her sweets. "Not much of a talker, is she?" Issei remarked, causing Kiba to giggle. "Not really, but the fact that you were able to get a single word out of her is an accomplishment in and of itself. At least, you got a hello." "Koneko-chan keeps calling me pervert or disgusting," complained Matsuda. "Is it because you are of the perverted duo I keep hearing about?" Issei questioned. "Hey, everyone is entitled to their own interests. I happen to worship the woman body and I absolutely love breasts," shouted Matsuda in excitement. "Pervert," replied Koneko. "You see what I mean," exclaimed an erratic Matsuda, pointing at Koneko. "Issei, this young man here is my pawn, Matsuda Suzuki." Rias reintroduced her pawn. Issei nodded and, like Kiba, offered a handshake. "Pleasure to meet you. Just so you know, I do not judge a person solely based on their interests." He offered a sincere smile. Matsuda returned his handshake, but internally he was thinking, oh great, another kiba. Matsuda then noticed that Issei seemed to examine him, which confused the poor lad. Is something the matter? Do I have something on my face? Matsuda asked. Oh sorry, I did not mean to stare. It's just that I'm sensing a draconic presence coming from you and I've been trying to figure out why that is, he explained. An understanding expression came from Matsuda. I see. There is a very simple reason for that, he said, then looking at Rias as if to ask permission if it was okay to tell him. Rias, understanding what he wanted to ask, stepped forward. The presence you are feeling is due to the fact that Matsuda here is the current Sekiryu, wielder of the Longinus boosted gear that hosts the soul of the Red Dragon Emperor, Drake, she explained with a huge amount of pride. She was extremely proud of the fact that she had the current Red Dragon Emperor in her peerage. Seriously. Now that was very shocking news for Issei. He knew that Matsuda might have carried a sacred gear related to a dragon, but he never expected it to be one of the two heavenly dragons. All of a sudden, a red gauntlet materialized on Matsuda's left arm and a powerful voice could be heard coming from it. Greetings, young dragon. As you heard, I'm Drake, the Red Dragon Emperor. It is a pleasure to make your acquaintance, Issei Hyauda, Drake introduced himself. It has been a while since he's seen one of his kin. It is an honor to meet the fabled Drake Wygosh in person. I've heard lots of stories about the two heavenly dragons from my mentors. Issei bowed a bit towards the gauntlet as a sign of respect. Well now. Despite being so young, you are definitely well-mannered. Haven't seen that tray in a dragon in a long time. What have you heard about us? Drake was impressed with his manners and asked him what the other dragons told him about them. Well, a lot of dragons I met idolize the two of you for your power and status. My mentors talked about all your accomplishments and praised your abilities, although Issei stopped wondering if he should tell him what his mother said about them. Drake, noticing his pause, urged him to continue. Go on. Do not be scared to tell. I did ask for it after all, Issei sighed and continued. Well, my mother described you as two idiots who got into a pointless fight and got sealed in the progress, Issei revealed. Silence ensued in the room. That was basically an insult towards their rivalry that has been going on since ancient times and is still being fought through their hosts, so no one had any idea how Drake would react to that. His response was not expected. Ha 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 ha, Drake was laughing. Everyone was staring at the boosted gear in shock until Drake started to calm down. Ha ha ha. My apologies for that display. It's just that it has been so long since I've heard anyone have the guts to not only insult me but the White One as well. Your mother is quite the courageous dragon, although I can't say I hate that in a woman, he said. You wouldn't say that if you knew who my mother was what Issei was thinking when Drake said that. Thanks for the compliment, and even though she said that, she does admit that you both are in fact extremely powerful dragons. After her and Great-red he left out that part, lest he reveals who his parents were. In any case, it is a pleasure to meet a powerful dragon such as you, despite being so young. Oi, partner, you would do well to learn a thing or two from him. Drake complained to Matsuda, who flinched. What is that supposed to mean? Exactly what I said, partner. If you wish to become stronger, it would be a great idea to get him to train you. Like I told you before, the only way to train a dragon is with another dragon, and you will never be able to reach your full potential unless you do that. Anyways, Hyauda Issei, I look forward to seeing your potential as well. Thank you, Drake, and I hope not to disappoint Issei. And Drake smirked before Drake cancelled the connection and the boosted gear disappeared. With that out of the way, Rias got to her last member. And last but certainly not least is my queen, who there is no need to introduce since you are well acquainted already. Being my queen, Akeno is also my second in command as well as the vice president of the Occult Research Club. She gestured towards Akeno, who winked at him. So everyone in this club room is a member of your peerage. Indeed they are. How much do you know of the devil's reincarnation system? She asked. Not much really, only the fact that devils can reincarnate people as servants, he said, scratching the back of his head for his lack of knowledge. At the time he was only interested in getting stronger, so other lessons took a back seat. This earned him a small chuckle from Rias. You foo, I see. Would you like to learn about it? She asked. Issei thought about it for a moment and he decided why not. It did not hurt to learn it and he was a bit curious how it worked. So he nodded his head. Sure, he took her offer. Very well then, Akeno. Rias called Akeno, who brought a chessboard from behind Rias's desk. Rias then conjured up a bag, taking out a few red chess pieces and placing them on the board. Issei could tell right away that these were not ordinary pieces. Each of them seemed to radiate some type of power. While pondering on the subject, Rias finished placing all her pieces on the chessboard even though some were missing. She then began to explain how the devil's system worked to Issei. Now, before I can talk about the system, I need to go through a brief history of the current state of the underworld that led to the creation of our system. Do you mind? She asked him before proceeding. Sure, please go ahead. Issei nodded, hearing Issei's answer. Rias continued on. Thank you. Now, as I'm sure you know or are at least aware of, there occurred a great war between the three powers consisting of us devils, who were led by the four original Great Mao, the fallen angels led by Azazel and his fellow leaders of Grigory, and finally the angels led by the God of the Bible. We, the devils, have been at war with the fallen angels since ancient times. We have been fighting over the possession of the underworld. The underworld is split into two areas, one for devils and one for fallen angels. The devils form pacts with humans in order to increase their strength, while the fallen angels, on the other hand, controlled humans to eliminate devils. At some point during this conflict, the angels, under God's order, entered the fray in order to eliminate us, which creates the three forces. This has been going on since long ago. Essentially, this war was a long and dreadful one. Extreme losses were suffered by every side of the three powers. Angels, fallen angels, and devils all suffered devastating casualties. To the point in which we devils lost all four of the original Great Mao leading us and almost went extinct. As a result of these losses, an armistice between the three sides was struck, in order to avoid the outcome of destroying each other completely. However, the losses suffered by the devils were much too substantial. A great majority of the pure-blood devils were extinguished, and around half of the 72 pillars went extinct. Our race was in jeopardy. This is what leads us to the creation of the evil peace system. Rias then picked up one of the chess pieces. The evil peace system was created by the current Mao Ajuka Beelzebub Summer. This devil reincarnation system allows us devils to reincarnate humans, and other beings, into becoming devils, thereby expanding the population of our race. By placing these pieces and infusing our powers into the body of a person, it is possible to then reincarnate that being into a devil. That then makes the devil who reincarnated them their master, and the newly reincarnated devil becomes the devil's servant. These chess pieces are the evil pieces that the system is based off of. Every high-class devil is rewarded with these evil pieces as a means of starting their own peerage. This is the system which allowed us to avoid extinction. Oh, amazing! Are there any restrictions to the system, or can you reincarnate anyone? He asked, his curiosity getting the better of him, although Rias did not mind much and was very pleased to see him interested in devil matters. Indeed there are. The first thing is that evil pieces are not able to reincarnate gods or Buddhas. I can only speculate it is due to the fact that they are way too powerful for the system to work on them. However, it is possible to reincarnate demigods as long as they are compatible with the evil piece used. This brings another point, which is the fact that the strengths, talents, and skills of the being to be reincarnated plays a large role in determining how many pieces will be used for reincarnation. A good example is my very own pawn, Matsuda. Due to the fact that he is host to the Red Dragon Emperor, it took all 8 of my pawns to reincarnate him. Other example of cases like this can be seen in my brother's peerage. Most of his members took multiple pieces in order to be reincarnated, illustrating how powerful they really were. It is also important to note that evil pieces cannot be used together, so there is no way to reincarnate someone with, let's say, a rook and a bishop. Issei nodded, illustrating that he was following everything she was saying. There are also special pieces known as mutation pieces. Using a mutation piece allows you to reincarnate a person that would otherwise require several pieces. However, they are extremely rare and only 1 out of 10 devils possess a piece. I myself was fortunate enough to receive a mutated bishop when I acquired my evil pieces. That is about everything that I know of the evil piece system. Ajuka-sama has stated that there are many hidden features installed within the pieces, but it is up to us to discover them. Rias finished explaining, taking a sip of her tea. That's pretty cool, although is there a reason why Ajuka Beelzebub chose to model his system after chess? Why not model it after something that can give you more servants? Rias pondered a bit Issei's question before replying, I believe he modeled it after chess due to his fascination with the game. In addition, the crystal from which the pieces are made take a very long time to process, so it limited the amount of servants each devil could possess. At least, that is my take on it. Any more questions? Issei shook his head negatively as Rias questioned. Nope, you answered everything I wanted to know. He was looking around when he asked another shocking question. Does this mean that all the members currently here are your peerage? Because I could have sworn that I felt another presence in the floor below us. Issei asked, catching everyone except Matsuda, who sported a look of confusion, especially Rias, by surprise. She never thought he could sense Gasper, despite him being sealed. Should she tell him? Rias was debating with herself whether or not to reveal her last peerage member. She looked towards Akeno, who nodded, letting her know that it was all right to tell him. Really, we have another member? I didn't know. Is it another Bishojo? Matsuda asked excitingly, letting his imagination run wild. Matsuda was the only one out of the peerage who did not know about Gasper's existence due to the fact that he was reincarnated very recently and not made aware of it. With a sigh, she decided to reveal the truth. Ha! I'm surprised you were able to sense him from here despite the room being sealed. You are correct in your assumption, Issei-san. The presence you are feeling is in fact my bishop. His name is Gasper Vladi and he is a half-vampire. Unfortunately, the circumstances revolving around him were quite complicated. Before you ask, the reason he is sealed below is due to the fact that he possesses great power that he is, unfortunately, not able to control, which made him a danger to himself as well as other. Therefore, under my brother's orders, I was told to seal him until such a time came that I became strong enough to be able to handle his power. She explained. Having heard that the aforementioned bishop is a guy made Matsuda lose interest, but he still paid attention to the details. Do you remember what I told you about mutation pieces? She asked to see if he recalled what she mentioned. Yes, I remember. Issei nodded, remembering what she told him. He also recalled that she possessed a mutated bishop, but he only saw one on the chesp. Then it dawned on him. I see, you caught on. Indeed, I had to use my mutated bishop on Gasper due to the power within him being too great for me to reincarnate with an ordinary bishop. But, doesn't that interfere with his duties as a member of your peerage if he is sealed all the time? Inquired a perplexed Issei. Normally, it would. However, you would be surprised to know that Gasper has the most success out of all of us when it comes to making contracts by using his computer. Therefore his performance is not affected by the fact that he is sealed. She told him, her tone exuding a bit of pride at her bishop's accomplishment. I see, although I don't think it is very healthy for him to be stuck in a room every day, he said with concern. If it was him, he would probably get so angsty to the point that he would rampage until he got out. A dragon values his freedom, and being locked in a room for years on end is not an option. I know. Even I say he is sealed. I did give him the option to leave during the night to have some fresh air, but due to the circumstances of his past, he had developed severe agoraphobia and thus he chooses to remain sealed permanently. My peerage and I constantly try to get him to come out, but he refuses, and I do not want to force him since that would not accomplish anything. Rias pinched the bridge of her nose as she recalled all the times she tried to get him out of the room only for him to stop time and escape in his inner sanctuary he calls a box. I look forward to meeting him then. I'm sure you will, in the future. Now, with all that said, I wanted to ask you. Would you be interested in becoming a part of my peerage and family? This was the question she desperately wanted to ask, and everyone could see she wearing a very hopeful expression for a favorable answer. There could be no doubt that she was proud of each of her peerage, and they were all very strong. They are the people that she could trust with her life. But she felt that, at the moment, the peerage lacked firepower. In the future, with tons of training, she knew that Matsuda would become a force of nature, being the Red Dragon Emperor, but at the present moment, he needed a lot of training. Having a dragon would definitely provide an enormous boost in power that she desperately needed, especially regarding a certain arrangement she wanted to get out of. Regrettably, the answer she got received was not a favorable one, as she saw Issei giving her a bitter smile as he shakes his head side to side. I'm afraid I'm going to have to decline your offer, Rias-senpai. I was born and raised as a dragon, and I cannot see myself as anything other than that. In addition, I hope you will forgive me for being blunt, and I mean no offense when I say this, but, based on what you told me, I doubt you would even be able to reincarnate me. He said this as politely and respectable as possible. If what she told him previously was true, then she could only reincarnate people above a certain level. It took her a mutated piece to reincarnate the vampire he felt earlier, and his power was leagues behind his, so he sincerely doubted that, even with a mutated piece, she would be able to turn him into a devil. Rias understood that he meant no offense, but his statement still hurt her pride a bit as a small tick appeared on her forehead. Oh, really? Is that a challenge? She said, crossing her arms underneath her chest. Issei found her reaction kind of cute, and he decided to humor her a bit. Not really, but how about this? You can go ahead and attempt to reincarnate me, and if you are able to, then I will gladly follow you and there will be no ill will between us. Issei's statement gave Rias a bit of hope where otherwise there was none. Is that so? In that case, Get ready to eat your words. Rias took her remaining pieces from the chessboard as she strolled confidently towards Issei. Don't regret this, she said, stopping in front of him. Issei looked down since she was a bit smaller than him and smirked. I won't. Please go ahead. Don't mind if I do, she said, bringing forth her pieces. She started with the bishop, bringing it towards his chest. She waited but nothing happened. Her first attempt failed, so she brought forth her knight piece. Once more she waited but no sign appeared that piece was compatible with Issei. This got her frustrated as she looked at Issei, who simply shrugged as if telling her, I told you so. It's not over yet, she mumbled as she still had her rook piece left. Compared to the other pieces, this was the most powerful one remaining she had left, and dragons, beings entities of pure power, would surely be compatible with a rook piece. And so, she brought her last ray of hope forward near Issei's chest and waited. And waited. She started to sweat a bit and waited. Nothing happened. Her head collapsed in defeat as a mini Rias was crying internally for having failed to reincarnate him. Damn it. My peerage would have been invincible if I had you, she shouted in defeat. In the background everyone was amused at their king's reaction. Kiba and Akeno both chuckled. Matsuda could not contain his laughter at his king's expense, and if you'd look at Koneko, you would have seen a small smile appear in her otherwise expressionless face before she went back to eating her sweets. Issei was simply scratching the back of his head, wondering what he could say. Hilariously, it was not Issei who bore a smug face at her failed attempt, but rather Akeno, who seemed proud of the fact that her boyfriend was too strong to be reincarnated by her best friend. Ara, it seems you failed Bachao, she teased Rias, who did not seem very happy about it but could not say anything to refute it. Rias simply stared at her queen with an irritated expression, but that did nothing to affect Akeno's smug look. Sorry about that. I hope there are no hard feelings, Issei interjected. Rias looked away and sighed before redirecting her attention to Issei. There are none. While I would have loved to have in my peerage, the fact remains that you are right and I am, lamentably, too weak to do so. On the bright side, you are now a full-fledged member of our club and a new friend, so overall, it was not a bad day. Although, should you ever change your mind, the offer will always remain, she said. Thank you. Also, I forgot to ask, but what exactly does your club do? He asked. Oh. It's true that I forgot to mention it. Our club mostly deals with anything involving the occult. It includes the study and research of yokai and other supernatural creatures in the area. Around once a week, we deliver a report or article on the supernatural, which is literally our forte. It's not really much. We mainly used this club as a front for our devil activities. You can think of this building as our headquarters whenever we need to get together in case of an emergency or activity, she explained to Issei, who nodded in understanding. All right, I understand. In that case, I'll take my leave, but before I do there is something I need to get out of my chest. There was one thing he needed to do before he left, and he didn't care how it made him look. He moved in front of Rias and, to the surprise of everyone in the room, bowed in extreme gratitude towards Rias. Even Koneko was so shocked that she dropped her chocolate she was about to eat. His forehead, literally kissing the floor, it rendered everyone speechless but did not stop Issei from expressing his thanks. There are no words to describe how deeply grateful I am to you, Rias, and your peerage for all that you have done for Akeno. You all saved her from a path filled with sorrow, even offered her a home, a place to belong, and took care of her for all these years. You all did what should have been my family's responsibility, and I cannot express how grateful I am for everything. Thank you. Thank you so very much, for all that you have done for Akeno-chan, he said to them. The last bit they could hear him sobbing, which only served to further express his sincerity. Everyone was beyond shocked at what they were witnessing, and none more so than Rias herself. For as long as she could remember, she had been educated in many different fields. Some she found absolutely amazing, while others, not so much. During her study, she learned about various races and their culture. Dragons, she was taught, were beings who valued their pride above all else, similar to that of high-class devils. Yet, here was one dragon that completely threw everything she thought she knew out of the window. Issei, a full-blooded dragon, was bowing, maybe even groveling, in front her, to someone who is many times weaker than him, expressing his gratitude over Akeno. For a dragon, doing something like this is outright disgraceful and would be scorned upon, yet Issei completely disregarded any pride he had, all for the sake of Akeno. She could not help but feel a twinge of jealousy towards her queen for having someone who would go to such lengths for her. Please, you don't need to bow your head to me. It was the right thing to do. She was finally able to let a few words out. Everyone also nodded, agreeing with their king. Issei looked from his position and nodded as he got up, while wiping off the few tears that managed to escape from his eyes. I still thank you for everything, he said with a smile. Akeno, on her end, also had a few tears coming down her face from happiness at seeing how much Issei cared for her, to the point of bowing his head towards Rias. If there is anything I can do to repay the favor, please let me know. Aside from becoming part of your peerage, of course. The last bit caused the mood to become cheery as every chuckled at his little remark. Of course, we are friends. Yes, we are. Have a good evening, everyone, he said before finally taking his leave. Rias made her way back to her desk until a thought came to mind. Oh, I forgot to ask him about his parents. I was curious to know who they were, she said before looking towards Akeno. Since Akeno had spent the better part of her life with Issei and his family, it meant that she most likely knew of his origins, so she could not help but ask, do you know the identity of his parents, Akeno? She looked towards her queen, who nodded to her question. Yes, I do, Rias. Then, would you mind sharing it with us? Rias leaned a bit to move herself closer to Akeno. Akeno placed a finger on her chin, staring upwards as if contemplating what to do before she turned her attention back to her king. Yufufu, that is a se-crit. She stuck her tongue out playfully but then switched to a more serious tone. I promised that I would never reveal their identity to anyone. They have been part of my family since I was a child, and they entrusted us with their secret when they did not need to. My parents and I promised to never reveal who they were, and they kept their promise. I'm sure that to this day, even my father did not reveal anything to his friends despite how close he is to them, so I do not want to break their trust, even for you, Rias. If Issei were still in the room, he would have been overjoyed at the fact that Akeno had, at the very least, defended her father's honor despite still resenting him. Seeing that Akeno had no intention to answer her query, she decided to let it go. She didn't want to pressure her friend into doing something she felt uncomfortable with. Fair enough, but it was worth a shot. She sighed before continuing. How are everyone's contracts going along? Taking a list, she gradually went through each and every one of them. Her peerage went straight back to business as they discussed their contracts. After leaving the old school building, Issei made his way back home. It seemed like a storm was about to hit the city, so he hurried along before he gets drenched. Arriving home, he entered his residence only to spot his father watching TV but with no sign of his mother anywhere. Usually, she would be the first to greet him back home while preparing dinner. He did not feel her presence anywhere at home or the city for that matter. "Welcome home, son," greeted his father, interrupting his thought process. "Hi, Dad. Where did Mom go?" he asked while taking his shoes off. "Ophis is currently back at Tanin's place hanging out with her friends. Apparently, a lot of the younglings asked for her so she went back to spend time with them. Although, she should come home soon. How was your day? Did you have a good time with Akeno?" smirked Great-red, loving to tease the hell out of his son. He got the expected reaction as his son blushed. "Dad, could you stop that?" shouted Issei, who was annoyed that his father did this every time. Great-red laughed. "Ha ha ha, sorry sport, but I can't help it since you are easy to tease. I'm sure Akeno-chan does the same thing. But, in all seriousness, how did your day go?" his father asked seriously this time. After calming himself down, Issei answered, "It was an interesting day to say the least, and quite a few things happened that I believe I should let you know about, but I would rather wait for Mom to come back before we get to it," he said seriously, causing Great-red to raise a brow, wondering what happened. "Well, there is no need to wait because she is already here." Great-red turned his attention towards the kitchen, Issei following his gaze, when a black aura in the form of many snakes began materializing in that spot, soon taking the shape of his mother. Having come back home, Ophis very quickly spotted her son and went to embrace him. "Good evening, my Issei. I apologize for not being able to greet you when you arrived back home," she told her son, who simply waved it off. "It's no problem, Mom. Dad already told me where you were. How is everyone doing back home?" They all still considered the dragon territory their second home, and that would never chance. "Everyone is doing fine. The younglings are as energetic as ever. Tanin is busy training everyone to be the best they can be. Oh, also Borva came by while I was taking care of some younglings, asking me to relay a message to you saying he wanted to spar soon and that he would not lose this time. He seemed quite motivated to see his rival," she explained with a small smile on her face. Issei was pleased that everyone was doing well, and he smirked at his friend's challenge. He would definitely spar with him sometime soon. "How about you? How did your day go?" she asked, interrupting his inner monologue. "Like I told Dad, I had an interesting day, and now that you arrived, there are a few things I wanted to let you know about." Ophis nodded and sat on the sofa near her husband, and Issei took a seat directly in front of them. Thus, he began to recount his day, from the time he left the house with Akeno until he got to the important details, which was the meeting with Rias Gremory herself. His parents, mostly his father, laughed at the constant annoyance his son was receiving from his fellow students, although they were both happy to hear him and Akeno getting along so well. "During the meeting with Rias Gremory, she invited me join the occult research club, and after considering it, I decided to join the club. They are all wonderful people, and it was thanks to them that Akeno was spared a life of suffering, and from what she told me, Rias saved her life." Great-red and Ophis both looked disheartened when he said that. It was still a hard pill to swallow that while they were living in peace, she was barely making ends meet all those years. It should have been their responsibility to make sure Akeno was safe, and they failed miserably. Unaware of his parents' internal moral struggle, Issei continued speaking. "After learning a brief history about the devils, I found out a surprising fact. You will never believe who I've met, but it appears that Rias Gremory possesses the host of the Red Dragon, Emperor Drake," he revealed to them, shocking them out of their mindless thoughts. They never thought they would hear of Drake being here. It also provided a bit of concern. Really, so the host of Drake is affiliated with the Devil faction this time. That is interesting indeed. Was he able to discern your identity by any chance? Great asked his son, wondering if Drake could feel Issei's power. Unlike the other devils, Drake had in fact come into contact with Ophis in the past, so he would know her energy anywhere, and he was strong enough to sense it even when he is sealed, which did concern him a bit. I do not believe so. I always make sure to keep my powers sealed, so, if he did notice anything, his tone did not give any indication that he did. It was still pretty cool to finally meet the fabled Drake that I kept hearing about. He seems like a nice guy, even started laughing hysterically when I told him that Mom called him and his rival idiots for fighting a pointless battle. Issei explained. Ophis crossed her hand and huffed. HMF, well, it's true. They both fought needlessly with one another and their pride cost them their freedom. It is my wish that you do not become like that. You already possess so many traits of your father, and that alone makes me cringe. Hey, what is that supposed to mean? Interjected Great-red, who was annoyed at the indirect insult. It means exactly what it sounds like, Baker Red, replied Ophis. Issei for his part decided to let his parents bicker amongst themselves and eventually they would calm down for him to continue. This was a usual thing between them, so he learned to live with it. After a short period, they slowly began to regain their composure before returning their attention to their son. Still, with both you and Drake currently here, I have a sinking suspicion that you will not be able to keep your secret for very long. You have become a lot stronger over the years and I have absolutely no doubt you can take care of yourself. There are not many opponents who could pose a threat to you now that you have mastered your powers. Your Crimson Fire and Black Lightning in particular could easily dispatch God-class beings. However, on the other hand, it also reveals your origins. Those powers contain our very energies and that is impossible to hide. If people found out that you were not only the child of the Ouroboros dragon but also the Apocalypse dragon, then they would no doubt see you as a threat and possibly create an alliance to take you down, just like what happened to the heavenly dragons. Of course, your mother and I would never let any harm befall you, and should they try, well, they will be wiped off from the phase of existence. Great stated. Issei could tell from his tone that he would definitely carry out his implied threat should it happen, and he did not even need to look at his mother, that she would do the exact same thing should anything befall him. I know how protective of me the both of you are, and I am forever grateful to have been given the blessing of being your son. You both are the greatest parents a dragon could ever hope for. However, it is not what I want. If this conflict does indeed occur, then I have no doubts that Tanin Shishao and the rest would join in as well. As a result, all the years of hard work Uncle Tanin spent for the sake of species would go down the drain. Dragons would be once again viewed as targets for elimination, this time by every faction, and many of the younglings I've spent my whole life with would die. I'm pretty sure, if it came to that, Uncle and the rest would never regret putting their lives on the line for me. That is the kind of people they are, but I will forever remember that I was partially responsible for their deaths. I don't want to see anyone I care for die in front of me ever again. I just can't. He took a moment to breathe in, wiping his tears before continuing. That is why I've decided to only use those abilities under extreme circumstances. Like you said before, Dad, there are very few who could pose a threat to me, so simply using my strength and other flames will be sufficient for the time being. Until there comes a time that our species can fly freely amongst the realms without prejudice. Great-red and Ophis smiled, got up from their seats and each took a seat near their son. Ophis took her son's hand and gently caressed it, hoping to ease her son's burden, while Great-red simply ruffled his son's hair. "My sweet little Issei. You are by far the greatest thing that has ever happened to me during my infinite life. All I want is for you to grow up to be the best you can be, and I will support you all the way no matter what path you take," Ophis commented. "Your mother is right, Issei. You have grown up to be a wonderful man and an even greater dragon. We, as your parents, can't help but be worried for you, and that will never change, but this is your life, your journey. Always know that no matter where your journey leads you, you will always have our support, because for your mother and I, there is no greater pride in this world than the pride we feel in you," followed Great-red, who beamed with pride for his son. "Thank you, Mom, Dad. I love you both so very much," Issei returned his parents' smile. "We also love you, Issei," they both said as they all shared an embrace. Silence ensued for a moment until grumble. Somebody's stomach started rumbling, causing them to separate and Great-red to laugh. "Ha ha ha, seems our boy is hungry. It must have been a big day, huh?" He looked at Issei, who shook his head furiously. "What? That wasn't me. That was totally you, Dad," Issei rebuked his father. "Heck no. I'm not that hungry yet." Both of them then looked at the only other member here, Ophis, who was not looking at either of them. Grumble grumble. This time the sound came from Ophis, who couldn't help but release a small blush. "Ha ha ha, so it was you. My, it seems someone is hungry. Hey, I was busy taking care of many energetic younglings and I did not have time to eat, okay," she complained to Great-red. Even Issei could not help but release a small giggle at his mother's frustration. In the end, they all started laughing at the situation and they all decided to eat out at a restaurant. All in all, it was just another hectic day in their lives. The next morning, Issei woke up earlier than usual. Having gotten the address of her apartment from her yesterday, he decided to surprise her this time and go pick her up so they could go to school together. He bid his parents farewell and exited his house, but not before hearing his father scream, "Go get her, tiger," or in this case would it be dragon. He mumbled the last part, which was not heard by Issei, as he closed the door and made his way to Akeno's apartment. Having arrived at his destination, he could not help but feel a bit guilty, because although her apartment was close to school, his residence was literally on the opposite side, meaning she probably walked a long way just to get to his house, unless she teleported using magic, but he was pretty sure she would not do that. He just felt bad that she had to walk all the way from her apartment to his house. Anyways, no time for sulking, he thought to himself. He entered the building, went up to the 4th floor and found the room Akeno was living in. Knock knock. He knocked twice on the door, waiting to surprise his girlfriend. He could feel her aura on the other side of the door, so he knew she was clearly awake. "Coming, please wait a moment." He heard her voice coming from the other side of the door. Steps were heard coming closer until the doorknob twisted and the door opened, revealing Akeno already dressed in her uniform. Akeno was surprised to see Issei. She was about to go get him at his house, but it seems he came instead. Noticing her surprised look, Issei smiled. "Since you came to pick me up yesterday, I decided that it was my turn to come and surprise you by picking you up," Issei explained. Akeno greeted him with a hug. "Thank you, Issei-kun, but you didn't really need to. I wanted to, and besides it didn't feel right to have walking all the way to my house every single time." Akeno smiled at his concern for her. "It doesn't bother me, Issei. I like walking and it also gives me the chance to come see Auntie Ophis and Uncle Red at the same time, but if it bothers you that much, I can always teleport to your house via magic now that I've been there. As long as you are all right with it, then I guess I don't mind. Issei answered. She nodded and told him to come inside while she finishes preparing to go to school. Issei accepted her offer and invited himself in her room. Looking around, he could tell it was a very nice-looking apartment with all the commodities needed. He had to give credit to Rias Gremory, or would it now be Rias Buchow, since he joined the Orc. He can think about what to call her later. He looked back at Akeno, who was finishing getting ready, and once again he could help but notice how absolutely breathtaking she looked. Even his dragon instincts couldn't help but scream at him to claim her then and there, and Issei had to admit that it was getting very hard to battle those instincts when he looked at her. Akeno, for her part, saw Issei staring at her from her mirror, and from the way his eyes kept wandering, she could tell he was looking over every inch of her. It somehow resembled how a predator would stalk its prey before striking. Considering that Issei was in fact a dragon, one of the top apex predators known to man, it wasn't that crazy of a thought. Still, the idea that Issei was gawking so thoroughly caused several fantasies to pop into her head of Issei dominating her, which sent a shiver down her spine. Luckily, it seemed that Issei was so focused on her that he did not really notice her internal arousal, so to calm herself down she decided to tease him a bit. Turning around, she placed a single finger on her chin and chuckled. Ara, is the mighty dragon about to devour me? Oh no, I'm just an innocent little maiden. How can I hope to defend myself? She pretended to act scared, folding her hands over her chest as if protecting her body, and waited for Issei to answer. Issei took a step forward, never losing sight of her. And, what if I am? Akeno was surprised at his response, as she did not expect such an answer. Issei would normally start blushing or start teasing her in return, but this time she could not tell from his tone if he was joking or serious. And those piercing eyes of his, now that he got a good look, were slowly shifting to his original reptile eyes as slits appears in his eyes. Oh my, she thought to herself, a slight heat coming from her chest at the thought that she might actually be assaulted by her loved one. Not letting herself loose, she let out a small grin as she made her way towards Issei, embraced his neck and leaned next to his ear. In that case, I wouldn't stop you, she calmly whispered in his ear. Once again, Issei's instincts were screaming at him to take her then and there, and from the looks of it, Akeno would not mind one bit, or she would not be doing this. Akeno felt him raising both of his hands, placing them on her shoulders, but, instead of him pouncing on her like she thought, she felt him kiss her forehead, surprising her as she shifted her gaze to Issei. She noticed that his eyes reverted back to his usual human ones as he smiled down at her. Someday, I will definitely take you up on your offer, but right now, we have school to attend to. Akeno returned his kiss with one of her own, but she aimed for his lips. I will look forward to it, Issei-kun, she said after separating. In that case, shall we go? He said, presenting her with his arm, trying to act like a gentleman, which seemed to please Akeno, who wrapped her own arm around his. Yufufu, with pleasure. They then proceeded to leave for school. Arriving at school, as usual, a lot of people were gossiping between themselves about their relationship, which made him ponder when they would stop. Anyways, Issei noticed that his class seemed to be waiting outside with their pay instructor, so after bidding goodbye to Akeno, he headed there to see what's up. Issei thought it weird considering that his schedule showed pay as the last class of the day. His thought was then answered by his instructor, who explained that their gym was undergoing some repairs, so they were going to do pay outside. However, the weather forecast said there might be rain in the afternoon, so they decided to move pay in the morning to compensate. Seeing that everyone understood the situation, the instructor began his class. Everyone wanted Issei on their team due to his incredible physique and the fact that he could do practically anything. Of course, unknown to them, Issei had to severely restrain his speed and power when playing sports lest he injures his fellow students. But, even with that restraint, he was still leagues ahead of the other students, easily getting the best of them in any sport, be it basketball, soccer, baseball, etc. In track and field activities, he would always stay one step ahead of everyone and didn't even break a sweat when all was done. It wasn't really that the male students were weak, it was simply a difference in their species. Naturally, the students were oblivious to this. The girls were going wild, chanting his names, cheering at him, while the boys were glaring at him with envy. His class gathered so much attention that even the students who were taking classes indoors paid attention to him, which annoyed the teachers. Although, ironically, some of them watched him with awe, due to how amazing good he was. Issei could not help but chuckle in nostalgia. He recalled how in the past, during his frequent spars with Bova when they used to be evenly matched, everyone would cheer them on. Those were great times. Anyways, due to his overwhelming ability in sports, the teachers had no choice but to add a few restrictions when Issei would play, lest it becomes a one-man show and his opponents simply give up. Currently, they were playing volleyball, and the restriction that the teachers placed on Issei was that every time he scored a point for his team, the next 5 points could not be scored by him, so he would be restricted to receiving and passing. He could not be part of the block since that would give him a chance to score. His pay teacher believed that would at least balance things out. Unfortunately, it was still not enough due to the simple fact that he simply received all the spikes made by his opponents, never letting them score. His natural instincts allowed him to react extremely fast and easily receive any ball coming his way, no matter how fast it came. This forced the teacher to also ask Issei to not receive during the time he was on the court. He felt really bad asking a student to restrain his abilities, considering that pay was an opportunity for all students to have fun and go all out. However, Issei was very understanding and accepted everything his instructor told him with a smile. Unfortunately, his actions caused the girls to fawn over him even more. All of them thinking that Issei was very noble to hold back for the sake of everyone else. Just another day, Issei thought to himself. The bell rang, signaling the start of lunch. Issei was getting ready to leave when he noticed Kiba coming towards him. Issei-kun, Ryas Buchau has invited all of us to have lunch in the club. Would you care to join us? He asked with the usual smile plastered on his face. Seeing no reason to refuse, he accepted. Sure, although. Where is Matsuda-san, shouldn't he be with you? Issei was looking around for the pawn of the group, who seemed to have vanished the instant the bell rang. Ah, I already sent Matsuda-kun ahead, so he should be at the club room by now. Kiba answered. Issei nodded. Very well, let's go. He got up from his seat and both of them took their leave. They made their way towards the club room and Kiba knocked on the door. You can enter. They both heard Akeno's voice giving them permission to answer. Normally it would be Ryas who answered, but their query was answered the moment they entered the room. Issei could spot a magic circle near Ryas' ear, meaning that she was currently talking with someone else, and by her current expression, it may have been serious, so he kept quiet and gave a nod as a form of greeting, which Ryas returned. He saw Akeno, who gave her usual smile and a wave of her hand. Usually she would run to embrace him, but it seemed she was taking her duty as the queen of the peerage seriously, staying near Ryas until she finished. Very well, I understand. We will take care of it. Thank you very much. He heard Ryas speaking before she dissipated the magic circle, terminating her connection. She simply sighed and returned her attention to her friends. Good afternoon, Issei. I'm pleased you accepted to have lunch with us. Rias initiated the conversation. Thank you for the invitation, although it seems I came at an inconvenient time. Is everything all right? He asked with some concern. Oh no, it's nothing very serious. It's just that we've been given an assignment to hunt down a stray devil. Normally, we would wait until school finishes, but this time, it is a request from the Archduke, so it is better to take care of this as soon as possible. Are you familiar with stray devils, by any chance? She asked him to see if he knew or not. Well, if I'm not mistaken, stray devils are devils who betrayed their masters or something along those lines, he answered, trying his best to recall any conversation he had with Tanin about this topic. Yes, they are. More precisely, they are devils who have betrayed their masters for their own selfish reasons, and without their masters to keep their powers in check, they become a great threat who rampage everywhere and devour innocent civilians. It is our duty to hunt down any stray to prevent further harm to the populace. Since the stray is located in my territory, it is my responsibility to destroy it. She explained. Issei nodded in understanding before an idea struck Rias. Say, would you be interested in joining us on the hunt? This could be a chance for you to see us in combat and see the way we devils do things. What do you say? She inquired. Issei thought about it carefully. If speaking truthfully, he would be curious to observe the teamwork of devils and how peerages handle combat. Plus, he would be there to protect Akeno should things become really bad, so he had no reason to refuse. Sure, it would be interesting to see you all in action, answered an excited Issei. Very well then. We will depart immediately. I just a few minutes to adjust my teleportation spell, since it can only transport my peerage members. She said as she rose from her seat, only to notice Issei shaking his head negatively. That won't be necessary, Rias. I can make my way there just fine. You can go ahead and transport yourselves and I will be right behind you, he said confidently. Are you sure? She asked just to be sure. Issei simply nodded. Very well. Let's go then. Rias activated her magic circle and all of her peerage, including herself, teleported to the place where the stray devil was located. Issei took a moment to sense their location and immediately disappeared in a pillar of flames. Somewhere in Kyo, outside of what looked to be a construction site, a magic circle appeared on the ground and revealed the Grimoire peerage. When the light of the magic circle died down, the entirety of the orc appeared in front of that place. Looks like we are here. Now we just need to wait for Issei, Rias commented before all of them saw crimson flames materializing near them, and out of them came Issei. This was a nifty ability he learned which allowed him to transport himself anywhere he wanted. It was very similar to the way his mother teleports from one place to another. Holy crap, that was sick. How did you do it? Matsuda asked, looking in awe. Oh, that is simply my means of transportation. Using my senses, I found your location and teleported myself here. Issei scratched the back of his head as he explained his ability to Matsuda. Rias coughed in order to regain their attention in order to accomplish their mission. All right, now that we are here, let's get to it. The stray devil we are hunting has last been tracked to this location, so keep your eyes open, everyone. Understood? She warned everyone. Yes, they all answered before making their way inside the site. As they made their way further inside the construction site, the orc reached a place that resembled a dirt pit. A wide, but not very deep, pit. It was a weird place for it, thought Issei, but he was not the only one. A pit. but there are no tools or vehicles. Kibar made that observation while looking around. Just as he said, there were no digging tools or vehicles around that could have created this pit. Moreover, Issei made another interesting observation while looking at the ground. It looks to be recently made as well. Matsuda added his own 2 cents after observing the pit. All of a sudden, Issei's enhanced senses started picking up strange noises coming from somewhere. It seemed as though even Koneko was aware of the stray's presence. "It's here," Issei stated as everyone raised their guard. Without saying a word and following his instincts, Issei looked towards a specific location. The moment he did, sounds of metal bars dropping were heard. "There you are. You can come out now, we know you are there," Issei said. Seeing that he was discovered, the stray jumped down, crashing just in front of the orc members. Everyone redirected their attention towards the new arrival. The stray was revealed to be an enormous creature, standing over 3 meters tall with multiple limbs. On his back, he had a pair of bat-like wings that devils usually possess, but he also had 4 long tentacles with a length greater than his own size. It was absolutely revolting, and the worst part was that he could smell the blood of a recent victim, indicating that there was already an innocent casualty. Rias stepped forward. "Greetings, stray devil, Varen. My name is Rias Gremuri. I've been sent on behalf of your former master to eliminate you." Varen's voice came out in a most distorted manner, just like his appearance. Who? Rias Gremuri, is it? I'm impressed that they sent the spoiled little sister of Lucifer to deal with little old me. I should be honored to be graced by your presence, but I expected that they sent someone of your caliber, since little weaklings would be able to take me on," he said with a smug on his face. What an egotistical fool, Issei thought. The stray was overconfident in his power despite being very weak. "You should not flatter yourself too much. The only reason I've been sent is due to the fact that I've been assigned to this territory, and it is my responsibility to take care of any threats. You should actually consider yourself unlucky that you had the misfortune of crossing paths with me." Issei was a bit confused, wondering why she was conversing with the abomination instead of simply destroying it. He leaned towards Akeno. Akeno, is there any point to conversing with the stray?" he whispered, seriously wondering about it. If it was the younglings in this situation, they would simply destroy the enemy in front of them, dispensing any kind of formality. Yufufu, apparently for devils, it's some type of common practice that shows that they are civilized beings, but other than that, not really. "I see," he said hesitantly, not really getting it. Ha ha ha, such arrogance. I will enjoy watching you die as I rip your body to pieces. I'll remember to send your remains back," he stated before jumping back, gaining a bit of distance between them. That seemed to be the signal for the start of the battle. "Very well then, let us commence. Everybody took their positions as Koneko, Matsuda and Kiba stood in the front lines while Akeno and Rias were placed in the rear. The stray used his multiple arms to grab several objects and threw it towards them. Kiba was the first to move as he intercepted the incoming objects and sliced them all to pieces. "How about this?" the stray screamed as he swung his 4 tentacles at them. Unfortunately for it, Kiba easily sidestepped them while Koneko smashed them away. All of those extra limbs of him are going to be a problem. "Rip me piece by piece," you said. "In that case, we will return the favor." "Kiba, Koneko-chan." "Yes, Bachao," they both answered. Both of them charged at the stray once Rias gave the order. "Now then, Issei. As I told you before, Kiba is my knight. His specialty is very simple, pure speed. Kiba was already fast to begin with, but if you add in his expert swordsmanship as well as the knight's increased speed, then you have a wind that cuts you down before you know it. That is Yuato's power. By combining those two skills, he becomes the fastest knight. The sound of multiple things being sliced followed her speech, along with a cry of anguish from the stray. From what he could see, the devil could not keep up with Kiba's speed and was powerless to defend itself as the knight dismembered him piece by piece. He heard several thuds as the severed limbs of the stray landed everywhere, including 2 of the 4 tentacles. Since he could not deal with Kiba, he decided to shift his attention to another, easier prey when he caught sight of Koneko making her way towards him. "You miserable insects! I will crush you where you stand." Stomp! The enormous monster tried to crush Koneko, however, to its shock, his foot did not hit the ground, and even more surprising was the fact that the girl was unharmed and lifting his foot with her little body. "Impossible!" he screamed, unable to comprehend the situation. "Koneko is my rook, and as she just demonstrated, the rook grants her increased physical capabilities, both offensive and defensive. It's impossible for a stray of that caliber to even harm her, let alone crush her," Rias explained. "Lift." Koneko then completely lifted up the stray. "Fly!" She then jumps high and punches into the monster's stomach very sharply. Bang! The enormous body of the monster gets thrown backwards, crashing on a wall. In pain, he struggled to get up, but his anger gave him the adrenaline needed to keep fighting. "Damn you!" he shrieked, sending his 2 remaining tentacles towards Rias, hoping to kill her, but this time, Matsuda stepped in the way. "Oh no, you don't. Let's do this, Drake," he said. "Right, partner, boost." Matsuda had been boosting his power since the start of the battle. Having boosted 5 times gave him enough strength to deal with the incoming assault. Both appendages struck Matsuda, but he was able to defend himself, and at the same time he grabbed both limbs tightly, keeping them in place. This gave Kiba the opening he needed to slice of the remaining 2 appendages as the stray screamed in agony. "Hell yeah, that's how it's done," said Matsuda. "Good work, Matsuda-san." Kiba praised Matsuda. "Matsuda is my sole pawn." Now, I know what you might be thinking. That the pawn is the weakest piece in chess, and you would be right to think so. However, the pawn possesses an ability that none of the other pieces have. The ability of promotion. Basically, under the permission of their king, if they manage to enter enemy territory, this ability grants the ability to promote to any piece with the exception of the king. That is why the pawns of a peerage are seen as the trump cards of a peerage, and I have no doubt that Matsuda will become a very powerful trump card someday thanks to being the Red Dragon Emperor. I have complete faith in him. If Matsuda had heard that, then he would have been extremely elated. Last but not least, Akeno. Rias turned towards Akeno. "Yes, Butchow. Ara, what should I do?" Akeno was giggling while walking towards the stray that is on the ground, panting. "Akeno is a queen. She is the one who is the strongest after me. Being the queen allows her to possess all the characteristics of a pawn, bishop, knight and rook." The monster growls at Akeno. Akeno makes a fearless laugh after noticing the monster's anger. Ara. It seems that you still have quite a bit of energy in you. Good thing, since Issei-kun is watching me, so, how about this? Akeno raised her arms towards the sky. The next instant, the thunderclouds started to appear, then a lightning bolt strikes down the stray. He was being electrocuted alive. Its entire body got burned with smoke coming off his skin. "Yufufu, it seems like you can still take more." Here's another lightning bolt hit the monster. Avaran got electrified again. It was really close to death, but even so Akeno still striked it relentlessly. During the times the lightning bolt struck the body, Akeno could be seen laughing. As you may have noticed, she is also a sadist, Rias added. It seems that Akeno really did inherit that particular trait from her mother. He realizes that he has a very tough journey ahead of him. I give you my sincere condolences. Rias whispered to him, seemingly having read his mind about the road that lies ahead. He simply sighed. Thanks for the concern, I guess, although I kind of had an inkling this might happen considering who her mom was. He scratched the back of his head. Believe me, that is nothing. Did you know that she possesses a BD? But she was interrupted before she could finish her sentence. Bachao, I believe we are done. Akeno said in a loud tone, yet never losing her smile. However, Rias knew that behind that smile was a silent threat to not say anything else. Rias shivered. There were times that her queen could be quite scary. Seems doubly so when it came to Issei. Very well. I guess it's time to finish this, she said as she conjured a sphere of destruction on the palm of her head. Issei, for his part, was curious what Rias wanted to tell him, but it seemed Akeno would have none of it. He could ask her later after all of this was done. Suddenly, his instincts flared up, warning him that the danger was not over. He quickly focused his senses and noticed that every single limb suddenly began twitching. He looked back towards the stray devil and despite the charred corpse could notice a small smirk coming from it. Then suddenly, all of its severed limbs launched towards Rias. To everyone's horror, Bachao, everyone screamed in panic. Kiba launched himself towards her, wanting to act as her shield, but to his horror he saw that he would never make it in time. If this was any other circumstances, then the stray might have succeeded in killing the princess. That is, if Issei wasn't present. Flame barrier, a barrier made of flames, suddenly surrounded both Rias and Issei, protecting them from the stray's desperate attack. Once the limbs made contact with his barrier, they easily disintegrated. Everyone breathed in a sigh of relief, seeing their king was safe. Here's a little lesson from me now. Never let your guard down even when you think it is safe, for that is the moment when you are the most vulnerable. That is a lesson my shishus drilled into me, constantly, Issei advised. Rias was very embarrassed at her blunder. Had it not been for Issei, then she would have lost her life here. Thanks for saving me. I owe you one, she told him. Don't mention it. Now I believe you should finish your mission. No, he replied. She nodded and made her way towards the stray, this time never letting down her guard until she was face to face with the tattered body of the monster, power of destruction still present on her arm. Any last words? Go to hell. He wheezed out the insult, causing her to laugh. I live there, she replied before blasting it away with her power, thus ending its life. After a moment of silence, everyone gathered together. All right, great job everyone. Aside from my earlier blunder, everyone performed their duty marvelously. Thank you all for your hard work. So, Issei, what did you think of my peerage's performance? Minus my little mistake, she mumbled the last part, but Issei caught it due to his enhanced hearing. He giggled but gave her an answer. From what I've seen, you have a very good team assembled. They worked very well together when taking down the stray. You are still a little rough around the edges, but I see a lot of potential in each of you. I have no doubt you'll become a very powerful team in the future, he said confidently, praising their abilities, earning him a nod of gratitude from each of them. Thank you, Issei. We appreciate the praise. It means a lot coming from you. Now then, shall we head back to school? Everyone nodded to Ria's question as they all teleported back to school. Asterisk 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 added this part to the chapter. Rest is the same asterisk 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 with the bell tolling signaling the end of another school day. Issei was making his way back home, accompanied by Matsuda, who joined him since he lived towards the same direction as Issei. Akeno wanted to accompany, but seeing Matsuda with him decided that this would be a chance for them to bond as friends. On the other hand, the various other girls were shouting insult after insult at Matsuda about not polluting Issei with his perverseness. As they walked, they both talked about themselves in order to get to know each other more, just like Akeno hoped. Issei talked about all the crazy things he did during his training, while Matsuda talked about his dream of becoming a harem king since his rebirth into a devil, earning him a hearty laugh from Issei. It is a unique dream to have, but at the very least he was very passionate about it, and Issei had to respect him for that. He was never one to judge a person for their taste, but rather for who they are as a person, and so far, although Matsuda is indeed a big pervert, he seemed to be a decent guy, as long as he steers clear of Akeno, that is. Besides, it's not like he isn't a bit perverted himself. That would be a lie. When I become a high-class devil, I will possess a peerage of nothing but beautiful women. I don't mind if they have big or small breasts. Issei's thoughts were interrupted by Matsuda's dialogue about his dream peerage. Unfortunately, he was indeed very loud, so many people were giving him looks of disgust, especially the girls who Issei could hear mutter pervert or scum. With a sigh, he answered, I see. In that case, what do you think about you, Master Rias Gremory? He asked, curious of his thoughts about his king. This earned him a heavy blush from Matsuda, who lowered his head down and started fidgeting a bit as he relayed his answer. I believe Buchao to be one of the most amazing women I have ever met. The day I saw her form peering outside the academy window, her long flowing crimson hair gliding in the wind, I was absolutely mesmerized and could not take my eyes off of her. I didn't know that she was a devil back then, but even so, it would not have changed how I felt even if I knew. Now that I am her pawn, I hope to become the greatest pawn and prove myself to her. The answer he received was honestly not what he expected from him. He thought Matsuda would have shouted something along the lines of she's the best woman with amazing appy or something along those lines, but instead he received an honest and, dare he say, pure answer from Matsuda, which only served to reinforce his opinion that he really is a very decent individual who is misunderstood. Or not to top it all of, she has the most amazing body I have ever seen, with the most amazing breasts I have ever laid eyes on. Did you know that she offered to let me touch them when I managed to bring in my first contract? Of course, I still have no luck on that front because all the clients I get are complete weirdos. One of them is a huge bulky guy called Miltan, and he dreams to become a magical girl. He scares the shit out of me and I have no idea how to grant his wish. Other times, my clients talk about manga or games for so long that I accidentally forget to sign a contract with them and leave. Nothing ever goes right. Matsuda complained as he reverted back to his perverted self, making Issei giggle a bit at his plight. Their little sessions were interrupted when Matsuda felt someone collide with him. Ow, thud thud, both of them fell on their bums. When he turned around, the first thing he saw was white. Looking more carefully, he noticed it was the body of a young girl who had clumsily collided with Matsuda, having fallen face first on the floor, her robes having flipped over her head revealing white panties. A sister. He recognized the attire of the young girl. It would certainly be someone related to the church. What puzzled Issei was the question of what was a sister doing in the territory of a devil. It is widely known that this was the territory of Rias Gremory, and he doubted heaven would be stupid enough to send someone that can be seen as a declaration of war. However, what most perplexed him was the very familiar feeling he was receiving when looking at this girl. Had he met her somewhere? While he was pondering such thoughts, Matsuda got up and approached the girl, offering her a hand to help her get up since he felt bad for having not paid attention to his surroundings. "Are you all right?" The girl took Matsuda's hand and stood up slowly. "Oh, thank you very much. I'm sorry for having bumped into you," she apologized to Matsuda, who quickly shook his other free hand. "Oh no, it was my fault for not paying attention," he replied. Then, a sudden gust of wind blew by, causing the girl's veil to fly off. How luckily, it was caught by Issei immediately. When he tried to give back to her, the girl's appearance was then revealed. Her long blonde hair that was hidden beneath the veil fell down her shoulders. Underneath the sunlight, it seemed to glow even further, but it was Issei looked at her face that he was honestly left awestruck. Specifically, her eyes. She possessed the most beautiful emerald green eyes that he had ever seen. Her eyes were the glimmering color of emerald, sparkling in the light of the morning sun like a fresh sheen of morning dew. But most of all, it was what he saw in them that shocked him. Purity and innocence. An ignorance stemming from kindness. A feeling of comfort and familiarity. They say that the eyes paint a clear picture of someone's soul, and hers are the definition of purity and innocence. Not a speck of evil or wickedness could be found in those irises, no matter how deep you looked. Something that is very rare to find in the world these days. Matsuda as well was awestruck. She was the perfect definition of a blonde-haired beauty. Her emerald eyes were so beautiful that it felt like he would be sucked into it. Eyes as clear as water, but with a color that matched a calm forest, with all the same serenity. Their color even reminded him of his boosted gear jewel, but gave a strikingly different impression. While the jewel gave a feeling of power, hers gave off the feeling of absolute innocence and purity. Both of them could not help but stare at her. The sister looked at Matsuda with a worried expression, but also darted her eyes back and forth in an embarrassed manner, since Matsuda, in his absent-mindedness, had yet to release the hand he picked her from. "Oh, sorry." Realizing it, he let go of her hand, scratching the back of his hand in embarrassment with a huge blush on his face. You could tell he had no experience in this kind of situation. Issei then realized he was still holding her veil and returned it to her. "I'm sorry as well. I believe this is yours." "Ah. Thank you, wait a minute. Why, you can both understand me?" Her eyes widened in surprise that they could both understand her. "Yes, we do," answered Matsuda for both of them. He was actually surprised the first time he learned he had this ability. He recalled what Rias had told him. When you turn into a devil, one of the unique ability you attain is language. The moment you turn into a devil, everyone in the world can understand what you are saying. People listening to you will hear it in the language they are most familiar with. If they are American, then they will hear it in English. If they are Spanish, then they will hear it in Spanish. And also the opposite. If they speak in a language besides Japanese, you will hear it in Japanese. It was an amazing ability to have, and he guessed that currently he was speaking her language while everything she spoke was translated into Japanese. For Issei, it was pretty much the same thing. As a dragon, he could instantly understand any language. "Oh, this has to be a blessing from God. I was having a lot of trouble since I got here because I cannot speak Japanese very well. I was lost, and since people could not understand what I was saying." She held her hands together in front of her chest and looked really sad. She did not notice Matsuda cringe in pain when she mentioned the name of the Lord, but he recovered quickly. That was when they both noticed the bag she was carrying with her. "Are you traveling by any chance?" asked Issei. "Oh no. That's not it. I was recently appointed to the church in this town, but I got lost trying to find it. You both must be residents of this town. My name is Issei Argento. It's a pleasure to meet you, Ama. My name is Issei Hiauda. Pleasure to make your acquaintance." Issei gave a small bow. "And mine is Matsuda Suzuki. Nice to meet ya." He pointed towards himself. "So your name is Issei? Have to say, that is a very pretty name," he added, causing Issei to blush. Ah really?" she stuttered, causing Matsuda to laugh a bit. "Of course, I would not lie." Issei enjoyed seeing the both of them interact. In a way, this was good practice for Matsuda to be able to talk normally with other girls. All of a sudden, something inside his mind clicked when he looked at the both them. Issei seemed to have realized something, but he needed to ask her to be sure. "Issei," he called out to her, and she turned her attention towards him. "Yes, Issei-san," she smiled. I know this may sound weird, but by any chance, are you a dragon?" It felt as though her world crumbled. "Previously Issei," he called out to her, and she turned her attention towards him. "Yes, Issei-san," she smiled. I know this may sound weird, but by any chance, are you a dragon?" It felt as though her world crumbled. How does he know? No, it can't be." Issei was panicking internally. She did not understand how he could have known the one secret she was desperately trying to hide. Before her untimely death, her caretaker made her promise to never reveal the fact that she was part dragon to anyone for fear what people would do to her. Dragons were feared by everyone, especially by the church, considering that their lord's hatred of serpents and dragons. Being none the wiser, Issei made the promise, and to this very day had never revealed her identity as part dragon, even when she was exiled. Yet, to her horror, the man in front her seemed to have figured out who she was. She was both frightened at this fact as well as heartbroken that she was unable to fulfill the promise she made to someone dear to her. Issei saw that her body began trembling, almost as if she was starting to have a panic attack. "Please wait, we mean you no harm. I am a dragon myself." He tried to calm her down by letting her know that they were not going to cause any harm. It seemed as though she was trying to hide her identity as a dragon, which Issei found understandable considering people viewed his race as beings of destruction and would not take lightly at having one roaming in their territory unchecked. Most of the time, it ends in conflict, so it's no wonder Issei is all agitated. His little tactic seemed to work as Issei slowly got a hold of herself. "Ah really?" she stuttered, wondering if he was telling the truth. Issei looked around to make sure no one was looking and then made his eyes turn to slits, proving his statement. Issei went wide-eyed that she met a dragon. Meanwhile, Matsuda was shocked that Issei was a dragon like Issei. He simply couldn't imagine such a cutie being related to a race that cause widespread destruction. "Really, you are a dragon?" That is all he could ask, but he still found it pretty cool since he was carrying a dragon within him. He isn't wrong, partner. Now that I focus hard, I can tell that she is in fact a dragon. However, from what I can tell, she is not a pure-blooded one but rather a halfling. Matsuda heard Drake commune with him in his mind. "Yes. I am part dragon." Issei nodded to his question, revealing that Drake was correct in his assumption. "Wow, that is pretty cool, Issei," he said excitingly, once again surprising Issei. She always assumed the worst if someone ever found out who she was. "Is that so?" I was often warned during my childhood to never reveal the other half of my species, and I always believed that people would hunt me down if they learned," she said with a frown. "Well, it is not as if you were wrong. A lot of people fear our race and the overwhelming destruction we can cause, so your worry is not misplaced. However, I can promise you that we will keep your secret safe." Issei reassured her, with Matsuda nodding his head to support his claim. Luckily, she seemed to believe them as her body slowly began to ease off. "I see. In that case, I thank you both from the bottom of my heart." Her smile returned on her face, which let them know that she was fine. "All right, now that that has been settled, I remember you saying you got lost trying to reach some place?" Issei asked. Remembering her previous plight, she nodded. "Yes, I was supposed to go to the church, but because I'm new here, I had no idea how to get there and nobody understood me," she said, a disheartened expression on her face as she looked down on the ground. Issei smiled at her. "Well, in that case, it's good that you bumped into us. If you have an address, we could probably tell, or better yet accompany you to the place you are searching." This caused her to look up in disbelief. "Really? Oh. I would greatly appreciate the help," she said, both her hands grasping together as if praying as she looked upon them excitingly, causing both guys to giggle at her reaction. "Yeah, sure, it's no problem. I've lived here all my life, so I pretty much know all there is about the city, and I can tell you that there are 2 churches in our city and I know where they are. Let me see the address." Issei then proceeded to give Matsuda a piece of paper that contained the address of the church. Taking a look, he suddenly raised a brow in surprise because the address contained there was not of the 2 active churches but rather. "Ha, that is the address of the abandoned church. Are you sure this is the right address?" he asked Issei with a quizzical look, wanting to be sure, but she simply nodded her head. "Ah. Yes, that is the right one, Matsuda-san," she said with a slightly nervous tone, but it did not seem like she was lying, so he simply shrugged it off. "Well, they must have decided to restart the place then. Anyways, let's get you there." "Thank you very much. I'll be in your care," she said with a bow, causing Matsuda to blush. As they were about to head to the church, they then heard a child's yelp. Looking around, the sound seemed to have originated near them. They saw a boy who seemed to have fallen and scraped his knee as he held on to it in pain. Both Issei and Matsuda's instinct kicked in as they wanted to help the boy. But, suddenly, Issei, who was next to them, swiftly passed them and headed towards the young kid. "Hey!" She knelt down beside him. "Are you okay? Boys should not cry over a minor injury like this." She patted the boy's head gently. The boy probably did not understand what she was saying, but she had a very kind expression, so he didn't mind. She then put her palm where the boy injured himself. In the next moment, 2 little rings appeared on each hand as a green light orb appeared from Issei's palm and flashed onto the boy's knee, and within seconds, the wound disappeared as though it was never there. "Partner, she possesses a sacred gear," Matsuda heard Drake say, waking him up from his absent-mindedness. "Sacred gear," he murmured, which was caught by Issei. Thought so, that was his thoughts as well as he marveled at her ability. "I didn't know there were ones that could heal like that," Matsuda remarked. "Indeed, partner. The God of the Bible created all manners of sacred gears. Those that heal, destroy, create, repair and many more. It seems that hers is one that can heal, and a very strong one too." After the boy's wound disappeared, he got up and noticed that nothing hurt. He even started jumping, amazed that he was okay. "There, your wounds are healed. The pain should be gone now," Issei said, her smile still present on her face as she got up from her spot and patted the boy's head once again. She made her way back to the two. "I'm sorry, but I had to." She giggles as she sticks her tongue out playfully at both of them. It was a gesture that they couldn't help but find cute, especially Matsuda, who felt like an arrow struck his heart when he saw that display. "Thank you, One-chan," they heard the boy say as he ran off with a happy smile, waving his arm at her. He said thank you, Issei translated for Aisha, who smiled happily in return. Issei pointed towards her rings. "So that power?" "Yes, this is the power to heal. It's a wonderful power bestowed on me by the Lord." Even though she was smiling, her expression held some sadness. There must have been some sorrow connected to her sacred gear, Issei speculated. Most likely a dark past, and he couldn't help but feel some sympathy for her. That was when Matsuda came in. "Wow, so you have a sacred gear just like mine. That is wicked," Matsuda told Aisha, who covered her mouth in astonishment at his announcement. "Really? Matsuda-san has a power similar to my own. I have never gotten the opportunity to meet someone like me. This is an honor. Oh, what a blessing this day has been. Not only have I met someone with a power similar to my own, but I've also met someone of the same species as me. This is most definitely the divine intervention of the Lord. Praise his name." Aisha began praying again in what seemed to be a comical manner, but neither Issei nor Matsuda stopped for. Heck, they laughed at her cute mannerisms. "Yes, my sacred gear is called the boosted gear, and inside resides one of the two heavenly dragons, Drake," he explained, causing her to exhale in surprise. "Ah, really?" Matsuda nodded as a green jewel appeared on his left arm. "Greetings, little Aisha. My name is Drake, as my partner just mentioned. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance." Drake introduced himself to Aisha, who began to stutter, now knowing what to say. Oh my, It is an honor to meet you." She managed to squeeze those words out, causing Drake to laugh. "Ha, you do not need to be so nervous. Although I have to say, in all my years, I've never met a dragon as charming and comfortable as you," he said, causing Aisha to blush. Thank you." This time it was Matsuda who was confused. "I understand charming, but what do you mean by comfortable, Drake?" You probably can't understand because you are not a dragon, but the aura emanating from Aisha gives off a very serene and peaceful feeling. It makes you feel as though it is all right to let your guard down around her." Drake tried to explain to his partner. He's not wrong. Her presence does give off a very warm and pleasant feeling. Issei backed Drake's statement. "Anyways, you've never met anyone with a sacred gear at the church you worked at?" Issei asked Aisha curiously, considering that heaven should possess many users that work as exorcists unless he was mistaken. No. Because of my power, I was seen as a very important figure and have been treated as a saint. Therefore, I did not get any opportunities to meet many types of people. I was usually kept away from people and didn't have any friends because the church deemed those things to be unnecessary, since my purpose was to heal those in need." Both Matsuda and Issei looked at one another after Aisha finished her explanation, appalled at the church for treating Aisha as a tool rather than her own person. Matsuda looked at her with a serious face. "Yes. You've never had a friend?" She smiled weakly, twiddling her fingers as if a bit shy to admit it. No. I have not." At her confirmation, Matsuda made his decision without any hesitation. He stepped forward and grabbed both her hands with his, making her a bit flustered as she was taken by surprise. "In that case, Aisha, let's fix that issue right away. would you allow me to become your friend? I'm pretty sure Issei here would also like to become your friend as well. You can never have too many friends. Matsuda asked her with a smile. Issei nodded as well, confirming that he would also like to become her friend. Aisha's eyes widened and her expression made it very clear how shocked she was to hear Matsuda's question. However, she smiled and nodded with teary eyes. Yes. Yes, I would love that, she answered as she cleaned away her tears, filled with nothing but happiness at this wonderful moment. Seeing her reaction caused Issei to smile softly. That's great. In that case, let's get you to the church. It's getting pretty late, so we should hurry lest you want to freeze. He joked a bit, making everyone giggle. The three then proceeded to make their way to the church together. They continued their small talk and eventually reached the church. Aisha took a moment to match the location to the address and saw that this was it. Yes, this is it. She jumped for joy, having finally made it to her destination. Both the guys smiled at her joyful reactions but then froze for different reasons when they came near the entrance. Matsuda started feeling chills simply being near the church, as sweat could be seen coming out of his body. It was only natural considering that he was a devil, a being of darkness, and the church was a place which belongs to God and the angels, so of course he would feel really uncomfortable standing near such a place. In fact, he remembered his president strongly advising him that he should never get close to a church or even a shrine. Now he understands why. Issei, on the other, felt no such thing but rather could tell that there were supernatural entities inside, and from their magical signatures, they seemed to be fallen angels. Fallen angels. He said to himself. Aisha, still ecstatic to have reached her destination, did not hear him. However, Matsuda was a different story. Did you say fallen angels? Matsuda cringed when he heard Issei that. Looking towards him, Issei noticed Matsuda's body start trembling a bit and his expression was of dread. He must have had a very bad experience with fallen angels for him to react in such a way, so his reaction is totally normal. Aisha was unaware of their turmoil as she turned around towards them. I can't thank you two enough for bringing me here. Can I invite you in for some tea? Matsuda-san, are you all right? Aisha wanted to invite them over for tea in gratitude for bringing her here when she noticed Matsuda's state and couldn't help but ask him how's he doing. Her expression showed nothing but genuine concern for his well-being. Truly, a caring and innocent woman. Matsuda wanted to answer her but he didn't know what to say. Thank you very much for the offer, Aisha. Unfortunately, it is getting pretty late and we had a long day, so may we take a rain check on your offer? Issei politely declined her offer using the excuse that it's late. Oh. I see, she seemed a bit sad. No doubt, wanting to show her gratitude by offering them tea. I'm sure we will meet again, so you could invite us again next time. Isn't that right, Matsuda-san? Issei looked to his classmate who finally seemed to snap out of his troubled state. Yeah, that's right. We are friends after all. He managed to utter those words. This seemed to cheer her back up as her eyes seemed to fill with joy. Yes, that would be wonderful. I would definitely come and see you. Aisha bowed her head down as both of them left the premises, waving their arms goodbye as Aisha entered the church. When they were out of sight, they started conversing once more. Are you sure it was all right to let her go? Asked a genuinely concerned Matsuda, not wanting anything bad to happen to Aisha. Issei also wondered the same thing. Unfortunately, there were too many variables to consider. On one hand, he also didn't want Aisha to come to harm, and if push come to shove, he would defend her with all his might. On the other hand, he did not want to cause any unnecessary burden on Rias. This city is widely known to be devil territory, and if he killed the fallen angels stationed here, it could spell trouble for Rias. His presence here is not known to the world, so it would probably be seen as devils attacking fallen angels. This could serve as a catalyst for another great war. Without knowing where those fallen angels stood, their hands were tied. It was probably the reason why Rias hasn't already dealt with the situation already. It was simply too risky. Honestly, I don't know. There are simply too many unknowns in this situation. Plus, there is no way you could have entered that place, given your state of mind. Clearly, something happened between you and the fallen angels. I won't pry, but for now, you should probably head back to Rias and tell her what we found. Issei explained, all the while thinking what his next course of action should be. Although reluctant, Matsuda understood where Issei was coming from and nodded. Very well. In that case, I'll see you tomorrow, Issei. Buchao might want to get your take on today's events, so be ready just in case. I understand. See you tomorrow and have a good night, Matsuda. Issei wished him a good night, and Matsuda did the same as they both went their own paths. Matsuda went back to school to tell Rias what occurred while Issei headed back home. On his way back, he kept pondering what the best course of action would be to take at this point. He wasn't lying to Matsuda when he told him that he didn't know what to do. It's just that there were too many factors to consider. However, when push come to shove, he will do whatever is necessary to protect his friends. That is the entire reason he became stronger in the first place. However, once he gets involved, no doubt his secret will be harder to hide. This was certainly becoming a massive headache, so he decided to wait and ask his father for advice. Arriving at home, he spotted the person he wanted to talk to. Hey Dad, can I talk to you for a moment? Great-red looked back from the couch at his son. Sure, son. What do you need? Great asked while tapping the seat next to him, inciting Issei to it next to him, which Issei gladly accepted. It's a long story, so I need to tell you a few things beforehand. His father nodded, showing he had his full attention, so Issei began recounting the events from the time he met Aisha to the time he left her at the church. Great-red took in everything his son said and could see why his son was worried. Devils, fallen angels, dragons, and now a half-dragon sister with a sacred gear and a healing one at that. Most interesting. Did you ask what type of dragon she was? Great-red asked his son, wondering what kind of dragon this Aisha was. Issei thought back to their conversation and realized he never took the opportunity to ask, so he shook his head negatively. No, I completely forgot to ask her. When we meet again, I'll ask her then. He told his father, who nodded. Very well. Still, a lot of different factors are gathered in this town. I can see why you are very worried. Right, and now I'm not sure what to do. I need some advice, and I was hoping you had some for me. He looked to his father for advice, praying beyond hope that he had the answers. Unfortunately, son, I cannot give you the answer you seek, for I do not know. Despite who I am, I'm not omniscient. I may be all-powerful, but I'm certainly not all-knowing. I don't know everything that occurs, nor can I know what the future holds. Your birth is a prime example of that. The only advice I can offer you is to follow your own heart and do what you believe is the right thing. You don't need to concern yourself with unnecessary things like hiding your existence anymore. You have become strong enough to be able to deal with most enemies you encounter. We knew that eventually, your existence would come to light, so, at the very least, You should control when it happens rather than let outside forces dictate it. Don't forget, no matter what happens, your mother and I are behind you all the way. Great-red reassured his son, who took his words to heart. Thank you, Dad, he answered with a smile, with Great-red returning with his own. Anytime, hope it helped. Issei nodded his head. Yes, it did. Anyways, I'm tired, so I'm going to bed. Have a good night, Dad. Sweet dreams, my boy. He gave him a wave of his hand as Issei went up the stairs and into his room, feeling a bit more relieved. His father was right. He had no time to worry about the consequences in the matter of his existence. The only thing he could and should do is to do what he believes is right. After thinking over it, he slowly drifted to sleep. The next day came by very fast for Issei as he got up, yawned and stretched, ready to start the day. Until he looked at the clock and it read 1:30 p.m., making his eyes blow out of his sockets. Oh shit, I'm late for school. He panicked, not believing that he was able to oversleep for such a long time. Normally his alarm wakes him up at precisely 7 in the morning. It was only when he saw his calendar that he calmed down. Oh, thank God, it's a day off. In all his hysteria, he forgot that he had a day off today. Breathing a sigh of relief, he calmed himself down, thinking about what to do for the day. He decided to go outside and walk around the neighborhood, and later on he could probably ask Akeno out on a date. With a plan in mind, he ate his breakfast, thanked his mother and left for a walk around the block. Issei enjoys walking. Feeling the outdoor breeze on his face always calms him down, and it also reminds him of his time in the dragon territory when he soared across the sky in his dragon form. Flying is definitely one of the best experiences he had ever had. Thinking about his time over there caused him to think about how the younglings are doing. It hasn't even been a few weeks since he left, but he still misses all of them. They all became a second family to him. His mother did say that they all asked for him, so he should probably take some time and go visit them. He had no doubt that Borva would probably challenge him as soon as he sets foot in that place. Not that he minded, of course. It's heartening to see Borva constantly challenging him despite knowing that he would lose every single time. Issei can't help but marvel at Borva's will to never give up despite the odds, although that is a trait every dragon share. While he was slowly losing himself down memory lane, he suddenly felt a chill crawl down his spine. He knew something was wrong when he noticed that there were less and less normal civilians as he walked down his path. A barrier. That was the only logical conclusion he could think of that would fit the situation. Using his senses, he quickly pinpointed where the barrier was and made his way there. Arriving near the barrier, he noticed that the barrier was used to keep normal people away rather than keeping people in and out, so he was able to enter quickly. This was when he felt two very familiar signatures alongside another. Shit, he screamed as he bolted towards the center of the park. He arrived quickly only to see Matsuda kneeling over injured while Aisha was being held by a raven-haired fallen angel. Unfortunately, before he could save her, they teleported away, most likely back to their headquarters. Damn it, thought a frustrated Issei as he arrived too little too late. Rainier had already left with Aisha, leaving an injured Matsuda who slammed his fist on the ground, dejected at the fact that he could not save his friend. Damn it, I couldn't save her. I'm supposed to be the fucking Red Dragon Emperor, but I was powerless to do anything. I couldn't save her. Why am I so weak? Matsuda kept slamming his fist, constantly berating himself for not saving Aisha, tears dropping down his face. He then felt a hand on his shoulder, looking over to see Issei looking at him with sympathy and concern. It's not your fault, Matsuda-san. She is a fallen angel and therefore is your weakness due to their light abilities. It doesn't matter whether or not you are the Red Dragon Emperor. You may not believe me, but I do understand what you are feeling right now. I've been there. The absolute feeling of helplessness from feeling powerless at not saving someone whom you care for. Issei looked towards the sky, reminiscing at his past, but then looked back at Matsuda. However, now it is not the time to be moping around. Are you going to keep wallowing in despair, or are you going to get up and do something about it, because right now Aisha needs your help? He adamantly stated. Taking a moment, Matsuda made his decision as he stood up. You are right, sorry for the pathetic display, he said, feeling a bit better after Issei's assertion. Very well then. The first we got to do is notify Rias of current events. I'm sure you don't want your king and your teammates to worry about you. Now hold on to me. I'll teleport us both to the club room. Matsuda nodded as he clutched Issei's shoulder. They then both disappeared in a pillar of flames as Issei teleported them to their aforementioned destination. In the club room, Rias was busy writing a report while having Akeno standing next to her. Kiba and Koneko could be seen doing their own thing. All of them were startled when Issei suddenly teleported in, but they were even more shocked when they met Matsuda with him and he was clearly injured. What happened? Rias shouted as Akeno stepped forward to heal Matsuda as best as possible. Kind of a long story, so you should probably take a seat, her pawn stated. He then proceeded to tell her everything that happened, from his time spending with Aisha, taking her to eat at a restaurant, bringing her to the arcade, all the way until the time they encountered Rainier again, and she explained how she needed Aisha for a ritual, all the way to the present. All the while Rias listened attentively to everything right until the point Matsuda claimed he was going to rescue her. I'm sorry, but I cannot allow you to save that sister. Matsuda was honestly extremely shocked at Rias. Why but how, he asked, clearly feeling lost. Issei simply continued to listen patiently, wanting to see where this goes. The simple reason being that your friend is affiliated with the fallen angels who are our enemies. Aisha isn't our enemy. She is my friend and I will never abandon my friend. Matsuda interrupted Rias, who let it go. That is a wonderful thing and it's amazing that you can boldly claim that face to face. However, this is entirely a separate issue. The relationship between devils and fallen angels is not as simple as you think. We may have a ceasefire currently, but if you show them a single gap of weakness, they will kill us. They are our enemy. She tried to reason with her pawn. Wasn't blowing away the enemy the Gremori's way of doing things? Sadly, it did not seem to work as Matsuda rebutted her once more. They were now both glaring at each other, neither one of them backing off. Honestly, Issei was surprised that Matsuda had the courage to deny Rias, considering how he likes her. But it seems some things are just worth fighting for. Even so, I cannot allow it. Your actions would not only affect me but also every other member. You are a member of the Gremori peerage and you need to be aware of that. Rias said calmly, but stated it as if warning him. Then, I will go myself if I have to. I don't know what they are planning with this ritual, but I know it spells bad news for Aisha and I will not allow it. Listen, I understand how you feel, but you need to think rationally. By now, the fallen angels have no doubt retreated back to the church and bolstered their defenses. That place is effectively the enemy's headquarters. You will definitely get killed if you go, and, as I explained to you before, I will not be able to revive you again, meaning you would truly die this time. Once again, she tried to warn him of the potential consequences, but he refused to listen. It doesn't matter if I die as long as I can save her. Aisha is my friend and I won't abandon my friend, he stated before bolting from the club room. sighed Rias before sitting back down, placing a hand on her head. You must think me heartless for throwing away the sister's life, don't you, Issei? She inquired him, thinking she made a bad impression based on the earlier conversation and considering that the sister was also his friend. But, to her surprise, he shook his head negatively. No, I don't. I understand your reasons for not being able to save her. Both of your factions are still enemies despite the ceasefire, and even the simplest action can result in another war. You are simply doing the best you can to prevent the worst-case scenario, and I cannot fault you for that. Without the permission from your Maos, you are restricted in the actions you can make. I'm sure that deep down, Matsuda understands why you can't get involved, but it seems his stubbornness knows no bounds. He said, causing a chuckle to rise from Rias. Yufu, yes indeed. However, his determination and loyalty to protect his friends is one of the qualities I really admire about him, she said. Everyone else nodded, agreeing with their king. Matsuda might be a pervert, but he was one who would risk his own life to ensure his friend's safety. In any case, while you cannot intervene due to the conflict between your factions, I am an entirely different matter, since I hold no allegiance to any factions, so there will be no chance for any repercussion to fall onto you. I should go ahead and catch up to him before he does anything more reckless. He stopped before smiling at Rias. Plus, despite everything that you said, I know that you tried to give Matsuda every bit of support you could to save Aisha. Issei said, making his way out. Oh, is that so? She remarked, causing Issei's smile to turn into a smirk. Oh yes, I heard you loud and clear. You told your pawn that the church is the enemy headquarters. Now, it's time I show them why you should never anger a dragon. Issei said before flaming out, likely teleporting to catch up to Matsuda. Yufu, it really is a shame that I could not reincarnate him into my peerage. Rias chuckled as she marveled at the fact that Issei was able to figure out the true meaning behind her statement, and once more regretting the fact that he rejected becoming a member of her peerage. It was then that Rias received the call that she had been waiting for. It's time. Is everyone ready? All of them nodded. Matsuda hurried along his way to make it to the church in order to save Aisha. There is nothing that will stop him from saving his friend, and he was not lying to his master when he said he would go at it alone. Which is why it was a good thing that somebody had his back. All of a sudden Matsuda felt himself being raised off the ground as someone grabbed his shirt and literally lifted him off the ground, preventing him from proceeding. At first, Matsuda thought that it was the enemy that caught him, but upon closer inspection, he saw that it was in fact Issei who stopped him. Hey man, why the hell are you manhandling me? Let me go! Shouted a frustrated Matsuda, trying to wrangle himself out of Issei's grasp to no avail. He did not have a single moment to spare. I'm trying to save your life, you idiot. What the heck do you think you will accomplish storming the place all by yourself? Asked Issei. Obviously, I'm trying to save our friend who's been abducted by our enemies. He placed the emphasis on the word our, trying to remind Issei that Aisha is also his friend. I know that, but you need to calm down and think rationally. Issei tried to calm his friend down. You're telling me to calm down when every second we spend is a second more they have to finish their ritual on Aisha. Matsuda screamed in anger, but it did not affect Issei the he thought it would, although you could tell from his expression that he was beginning to become a bit irritated, but tried to remain composed. I understand that, but what do you think charging in recklessly is going to accomplish by yourself? All you'll end up doing is getting yourself killed pointlessly, just like Rias explained. How do you think Aisha is going to feel when she finds out you died trying to save her? It would devastate her. You need to think before you act. There is a difference between courage and just plain recklessness. Please don't forget that you have people who are waiting for you to come back. Despite what you may think, Rias Gremory is definitely worried about you and was also trying to look out for you. Issei pointed out how affected everyone else would be should he die. Letting the words sink in allowed Matsuda to finally calm down. You're right. I wasn't thinking straight. Thanks, he sighed, thanking Issei for his help. Seeing Matsuda calm down, Issei released him from his grasp and smiled. Besides, while you may think Rias did not want to help you, nothing could be further from the truth. He mentioned, causing Matsuda to wonder what he meant. What do you mean? You didn't notice due to your rage, but Rias gave you as much support as she could with the limited amount of authority she possessed. She clearly told you her pawn, that the church was the enemy headquarters. Now why do you think she would tell you that? He let Matsuda think on it, hoping he would understand the meaning behind her words until it clicked in his mind, remembering what she taught him about pawns. Now he felt like crap for having lashed out at her and calling her heartless. I really am an idiot. He looked dejected. Don't worry about it. She does not blame you for it. If anything, she really admires your dedication to your friends and is very proud of you. He tried to reassure as best as he could. It seemed to success as Matsuda seemed more elated. Good, now that this is settled, we still have to save Aisha, so let's go, he said, shocking Matsuda since he thought he came to stop him. Realizing his thoughts, Issei clarified, I only stopped you from doing something reckless. I never said I'd stop you from saving her. I'm also going along with you since Aisha is also my friend, so let's go, we don't have a moment to lose. They both then made their way to their intended destination. Now outside the church, Issei began plotting their next move. Out of curiosity, what were you intending to do once you got here? Just bust in the front door and demand they release Aisha? He asked Matsuda. Now that I think about, that is indeed a dumb move, he said, looking down in shame and embarrassment, now seeing how stupid his strategy was. Don't worry about it. You were not thinking clearly back then with only your determination to drive you. It's a good thing to have, mind you, but that does not mean you should throw rationality out of the window, especially if you are going to face opponents who outnumbered and overpower you. Advised Issei, recounting all the lessons he'd been taught. He never thought he'd be the one teaching it to someone else, since he never saw himself as a teacher. His uncle would be so proud of him. Oops. Now is not the time to wonder, Issei thought to himself as he recomposed himself. All right then, let's see what we are up against. Give me a moment, he told Matsuda, as he closed his eyes and focused his senses entirely on the church in order to scout how many enemies they were dealing with. Looking at Issei, Matsuda did not understand what he was doing until a voice interrupted him. He is currently using his senses to scour the building to find out how enemies you are dealing with. Drake said. Wow, he can do that. Amazing. He was awed at Issei's ability, making Drake chuckle. Of course, partner. Dragons have always possessed the sharpest senses compared to other races. Even you can do this with enough training since you possess me. Drake explained to his partner, although even he was surprised that Issei was able to master such an advanced technique at such a young age. From what Drake could see, not only was Issei focusing on the church but also all the surrounding environment around the church, most likely to see if any enemies were patrolling around them. It was amazing to say the least. Meanwhile, Issei was entirely focused on his task. He could feel the presences of many people residing in the church, and from their auras he could tell which races they belonged to. However, there was something that worried him. Of the enemies he could sense, there were a few who felt like humans, yet there was something off about their aura that felt inhumane. He had never felt such a presence in his life. Opening his eyes, he let Matsuda know of his findings. "All right, based on what I could tell, there are 2 floors in that building. Aisha is located in the basement floor accompanied by 4 fallen angels, one of them being that Rainier chick that took her. Luckily, there are no abnormalities with her aura, meaning they have not done anything to her yet, but it appears that she is most likely unconscious. There are also several exorcists located inside. I counted at least 100 as well as a few other soldiers that quite frankly I have no idea what they are. Now aren't you glad that I stopped from heading off to your doom?" He smirked at Matsuda when he told him the last part. "Ha ha ha, very funny. I get it. I was an idiot for going at it alone. You don't need to rub it in," he said sarcastically. "Sorry, couldn't help it. Anyways, shall we go through the front entrance? There is no doubt that the fallen angels have anticipated our arrival, which is why there are so many signatures inside, so there is no point in being subtle." Issei insinuated. "All right, now you are speaking my language. You ready, Drake?" Matsuda slammed both his fists together ready to strike while his boosted gear manifested on his arm. "Always, partner, boost." "All right, let's start by introducing ourselves," Issei said as he formed an orb of fire and used it to blast away the front doors of the sanctuary. At this point, there is no going back, but that was never an option for the both of them as they head straight in. As the dust started to settle, their surroundings started to become much clearer. Matsuda then spotted several stray exorcists throughout the room. He counted maybe around 30. That is a big number, but he would not let that defeat him. He would beat them all in order to proceed further to save Aisha. Issei had already identified how many exorcists lied in wait on the current floor. He was simply thinking on how to deal with the situation as effectively as possible. He obviously couldn't go all out lest he attract some unwanted attention towards himself, but also he didn't want to reduce the city he lived in to rubble. Just as he was pondering to himself, he suddenly felt more signatures heading their way, which made him unintentionally smirked. His thoughts were interrupted when he heard the sound of clapping echoing throughout the sanctuary. Someone who looked like a priest showed up behind the pillar. Seeing his face, Matsuda became disgusted, which was an indicator to Issei that he had met this person before. "Oya oya, you are the devil from before. What a meeting, this is a reunion." "Ha ha ha, I'm feeling so emotional," he said, sporting an insane smile. "You know this freak?" Issei asked. "Unfortunately. That insane asshole killed an innocent man and also almost killed Koniko-chan as well as myself," he said in disgust, never looking away from the insane priest who simply laughed after hearing the devil speak. "Of course, I killed him. He was a criminal who had been summoning devils, so I had to kill him. I just did what any other exorcists would do, rid the world of evil. I mean, humans who make pact with devils are nothing but scum," he said, with all the other stray exorcists nodding, agreeing with their comrade's view. "You guys came to rescue little Aisha, right? Ha ha ha. How it warms my bleeding heart that devils' summers are big-hearted for coming here to save a bitch like that who can heal devils. Well, you are too late though. She will die soon enough." He mocked them, but his statement worried both of them. "Die, what the fuck do you mean?" shouted an enraged Matsuda. "Oh, ha 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 ha, you guys don't know anything, well allow Freed Summer here to enlighten you. The ritual about to take place will apparently extract the sacred gear currently hosted by little Issei. Apparently Rainier and the others acquired a tool that allows the extraction of sacred gears. Amazing, isn't it? He exclaimed, shocking both of them since it seemed impossible. Is that even possible, Drake? Matsuda asked his partner. I've never heard of such a thing, but removing a sacred gear which is tied to someone's soul, it would surely end in death. His statement shook their cause as the urgency of their shot way up. Issei's face was shadowed by his hair as anger slowly started to rise up and his power slowly leaked out from causing the atmosphere around them to shiver, yet the exorcists paid no attention. Forget about that. There is another problem I'm currently facing. I have never met the same devil twice before. You know, it's because I am super strong. I cut devils into pieces when I first meet them. That's how I always lived, but you guys ruined my style. I hate people who have the audacity to interfere with my style, Tilda. That's why, Tilda, you all piss me off. That is why I have tinsy winsy favor to ask. Die, you trashy devils, he shouted in rage, taking out his gun and one-handed light sword. That seemed to mark the start of the fight as the other exorcists began to surround them, causing Matsuda to heighten his guard, ready to strike and counter at a moment's notice. 5 of the exorcists shot forward at the same time, wanting to strike first and be done with them. All of them believed that this would be an easy fight. Boy, how wrong they would turn out to be. In an instant, the 5 exorcists were blown backwards by Issei, who striked faster than they could even see. All of them crashed on the walls, breaking their bones. 3 of them instantly died upon collision while the others were rendered unconscious. This surprised Fried and the others, who had no idea what had happened. One moment, their comrades were on the offense, and the next they were easily incapacitated or worse, killed. What occurred was very simple. Issei, with a wave of his arm, blew them away, but he moved so fast to the point that none of them even realized they were hit. You will all pay very dearly for toying with my friend's life, you miserable vermin. Everyone suddenly heard Issei speak in a much deeper voice, clearly very angry at the moment. However, the moment he lifted his head, all the exorcists shuddered in fear when they looked upon Issei's face. His eyes were replaced with crimson glowing eyes with a vertical black slit promising them nothing but death and despair. Even Fried could do nothing, shake in terror at the sight of those eyes. What are you? He tried to save face yet clearly failed. Issei turned his attention towards him as silence ensued. Your worst nightmare was all they heard when a sudden pressure forced them to kneel. That pressure was coming from Issei, who released his killing intent. Never in their life had they felt death looming over them as close as right now. No one could move a single muscle and were at the mercy of this abomination in front of them. However, all of the sudden, the pressure seemed to have vanished as quickly as it appeared. They looked up to see that Issei had disappeared from his spot. Unfortunately, I do not have the time to play around with you. Which is why, Matsuda, I'm leaving you and the others to take care of this trash. They all heard a voice coming from behind. Looking around, Issei had somehow materialized near the pillar, his back to looking human, and no one noticed a thing. He then pushed the pillar side, revealing a staircase leading to the bottom floor as he made his way down. No one followed after him, still stunned by everything that happened. Hey, I want to save Issei too. And what do you mean by others? I'm the only one here, shouted Matsuda, not understanding what Issei meant until he heard a very familiar voice. Oh my, it seems we arrived a bit late. The party has already started. It seems Issei went ahead. I may have to punish him for leaving us behind. Yufu, it can't be helped. Fukubachow, he most likely went ahead to save the sister. Yes. Bachao, everyone. Matsuda looked on in shock, not believing his eyes. But I thought you weren't going to get involved, was all Matsuda could say, still not believing that everyone came, considering how Rias was very adamant in not getting involved in this matter. Rias smiled. I never said I wasn't going to get involved. I just didn't want you to go by yourself, but that does not mean I was going to let fallen angels have their way in my town. Just recently, I finally received a call from my brother who told me that Azazel, the fallen angel leader, has stated that the fallen angels currently here are not under any orders from him, meaning they are to be considered rogue fallen, so my brother gave me the go-ahead to take them down. Rias explained. Matsuda could do nothing but stare wide-eyed at his king. He then looked down in shame, not believing that he doubted this woman for a second. I'm sorry, Bachao. I shouldn't have doubted you. It's just that Matsuda faltered as the words came out of his mouth. It's okay, I understand. You were only trying to save a friend. I wouldn't expect anything less from my pawn. Not only did Rias understand him, but he noticed that she seemed to beam with pride when she told him that. Anyways, this is not the time or the place for such banter. We have opponents to deal with. So everyone, let's do what the Gremory Peerage does best and blow our opponents away. Yes, Bachao. Everyone nodded at Rias' command and took their positions. Fried finally took this moment to recover, shaking his head wildly to regain his composure from his previous state. Well. It seems we have more devils coming to intrude on our little party. Seems we are being graced with the princess of all scums. Fried turned his attention towards the devils, his insane smirk present once more on his face. You aren't exactly a sight for sore eyes, but at the same time, this is perfect. I have yet to pay you back for injuring Koniko-chan as well as Matsuda-kun. Please allow me to rectify that this moment. Rias answered him back with a very angry stare. TCH, alright guys, let's kill these devil scums once and for all. The people below will be able to take care of that filthy abomination, so we can just enjoy slaughtering these devils. Fried shouted, trying to rile up the others, which seemed to work as they encircled the newly arrived Gremory Peerage. It seems we are being underestimated here. No matter, let's take care of this and go help Issei-kun to save the sister. Kiba, you take care of Fried and everyone else will deal with the other exorcists, she said while an orb of destruction appeared on the palm of her hands. Meanwhile Akeno switched to her shrine outfit as lightning seemed to crackle around her. Yes. Immediately Kiba sprinted towards Fried as they crossed swords, and that was the signal to begin the battle as the other exorcists rushed in. Down below, Issei descended the stairs, then walked across a single passage until he reached a big door. On the other side, he could tell were the rest of his enemies seemingly awaiting his arrival. However, one thing bothered him. He could no longer detect the unknown soldiers he located previously. He was actually impressed that they were able to hide their presences from a dragon's senses, much less his own. This could only mean one thing. Ambush. They were most likely planning to ambush him the moment he entered the room, or were waiting for him to let his guard down before striking him. He will find out soon enough as he blasted the doors open, making everyone turn their attention towards him. Entering the room, he spotted the rest of the exorcists, who were each carrying blades of light in their hands, and they were all directed towards him. Further away, he spotted 4 fallen angels. One of them is the female Rainier who he remembered taking away Aisha and injuring Matsuda. Another was what seemed to look like a short girl with blonde hair styled into twin tails with blue eyes. She wore a gothic Lolita attire, which consisted of a black Lolita dress with white frills, a large black bow on the front, and a green jewel embedded on the collar, white thigh-high socks, and black shoes. Next to her was a tall and buxom with brown eyes and long navy blue hair that somewhat obscured her face. She was wearing a maroon, trench coat-like top with a wide collar, a matching mini-skirt, and black-heeled shoes. The trench coat top was open at her chest, giving view to her breasts and cleavage. Last was the only male in the group. Based on his appearance, he looked to be a middle-aged man with short black hair and dark blue eyes. Finally, he spotted the person he came to save, Issei. Her limbs were shackled to what seemed like a machine-like structure. No doubt a tool they were planning to use for this ritual. He scanned her magical signature once more and breathed a sigh of relief to see that she was still alive and well. She was simply unconscious at the moment. "Who the heck is this guy, Rainier?" he heard the blonde one asked Rainier the question. "I don't know, Mettled, but whoever he is, he must be affiliated with those devils. I need you three to buy me some time so I can implement the ritual to extract this girl's sacred gear." Rainier ordered the three to stall him. Not that Issei would even let them. "Whoever he is, he isn't that bright. Coming here by himself to take on all of us. What an imbecile, don't you think so, Donashik?" said the blue-haired woman looking at her male comrade. "Indeed, Kalawana. I can't feel an ounce of power coming from the guy, so he must be weak. Ha, they must have sent him here as a sacrificial pawn. What a joke. The soldiers gathered here are enough to deal with this," said the newly named Donashik. It was clear that their arrogance knew no bounds as they insulted Issei in front of his face, not knowing the real difference in their power. "You were a fool to come here by yourself. If you had any brains, you would have escaped the moment you entered this room, but instead you choose to face us. What do you hope to do against all of us by yourself?" Donashik asked arrogantly. All of the fallen angels wearing smirks on their faces as the two exorcists from earlier prepared to slash away at him from both directions. "What I plan to do," they heard him say. The exorcists got closer. "It's simple, really." They swung their blades thinking they would decapitate the intruder, but instead their blades collided with something incredibly hard. What blocked them were two scaly crimson wings. "I plan to annihilate all of you." His voice turned deep, sending shivers down everyone's spine, realizing that the enemy in front of them wasn't normal. However, it was only when he revealed his face behind his wings that caused everyone to flinch. Just like before, his eyes turned into slits as he used his wings to bisect the two exorcists foolish enough to charge at him. Blood spurted everywhere as the remains of the exorcists fell on the ground, a truly gruesome scene for everyone to see. The fallen angels examined his appearance. Crimson wings and reptilian eyes. There was only one species they knew that fit this criterion. A dragon. "What the heck is a dragon doing here?" screamed Mettled in fright as her body started quivering. The others were not so different, never expecting to come face to face with a dragon of all things. That very dragon turned his focus to them, his piercing red eyes seemed to stare at their very soul. "I came to save my friend, fallen angel," they heard him say, causing Mettle to point at the unconscious Issei. "You mean this sister? I didn't know that this bitch even had any friends. Big mistake." A sudden pillar of fire suddenly burst from underneath her, consuming her whole body as she was reduced to ash. She was killed, without even a shred of resistance. No one knew what had occurred as it happened even faster than a blink of the eye. The other three fallen angels could do nothing but stare wide-eyed at the pile of ash that used to be their comrades. What just happened?" whispered Kalawana, clearly in a state of shock, mirrored by her comrades. "She got what she deserved, insulting my friend." Now I will teach you miserable insects what happens when you anger a dragon. But first, holy sphere. A sphere was suddenly conjured around Issei as well as the artifact she was attached to, forming a protective barrier made up of Issei's holy flame, once more catching everyone off guard. There, at least now she is safe while I deal with all of you. With Issei protected by his barrier, Issei could now focus entirely on eliminating all of them. Rainier and her comrades conjured their own spears of light and tried to destroy the sphere surrounding Issei. Unfortunately, their strike did not even make a single dent on it. What is this?" shouted Rainier as she continued her relentless assault with no success. "HMF, don't even bother. There is no chance your weak attacks will even make a dent on it. Although, considering you are all used to be angels, I'm surprised you haven't already guessed what power that is," smirked Issei. Taking a moment to examine the sphere, Rainier went wide-eyed when she finally noticed what it was made of. "Impossible. That's impossible. How are you able to use holy flames, an ability only God of the Bible and the seraphs can use?" She couldn't believe it. Holy flames were regarded as one of the most powerful flames. The fact that only God of the Bible as well as only the seraphs were able to use them, proved it, and yet here was an unknown dragon capable of conjuring them, and to a masterful degree it seems. This is getting from bad to worst for Rainier as she was watching her plans crumble to pieces by a single entity. The others as well couldn't believe the predicament they were in. Gone were any traces of their arrogance as sweat beaded down their faces as fear overtook them. "All of you, attack him now!" Donashik screamed at the exorcists to attack Issei, but they were rooted in place by the sheer pressure coming from Issei's killing intent. "Unfortunately, I don't have time to waste, so I'll finish you all right now." Issei lifted his arm, impaling decimation in an instant. Multiple flaming spears rained down upon each exorcist, impaling them all. Their bodies instantly consumed by the flames, reducing them all to ash. The fallen angels were taken aback by this. "What the heck just happened? I didn't even see him conjuring all those spears," said a panicked Donashik, having no idea what to do. Issei was ready to finish the fallen angels as well when his instincts flared at him, warning him of a potential danger nearby. That was then he looked at his surroundings and noticed something weird. The shadows around him seemed to slowly be shifting as if they had a mind of their own. All of a sudden, from the shadows sprung multiple beings as they charged towards Issei in a surprise attack. Luckily, thanks to his instincts, he was able to react just in time as he dodged the enemy strikes by jumping backwards. He automatically covered his body in scales for good measure, since you could never be too careful, as was taught by Tannin. Multiple sword stabs were heard crashing into the spot Issei was previously as Issei got a good look on his attackers. There were approximately a dozen of them, and these were the soldiers he lost track of when he came downstairs. He never expected them to be able to meld within the shadows of objects to ambush him. Pretty creative. They appeared to be human beings, yet for some reason he couldn't understand, they did not really feel human. They all wore some strange masks and were each carrying a light sword for offense. These weird soldiers did not waste any time as multiple of them attacked simultaneously from all directions, prompting Issei to use his wings as a means of defense. All of their swords were repelled when they made contact with his scales, not able to even damage them. They were indeed a lot stronger than the stray exorcists he disposed of earlier, however. You may be stronger than those exorcists, but you are still too weak to deal with someone like me. Issei then counter-attacked, delivering a powerful body blow to each of his assailants, sending them flying and crashing on the wall. They were most definitely down for the count as Issei focused on the rest of them. Yet, he noticed that none of them showed a single reaction to their comrades being killed by him, which puzzled him. That was when he heard multiple cracking sound coming from the bodies he supposedly killed. Crack, crack, crack. Slowly, their bodies seemed to be placing themselves back into place. Some type of body regeneration, he thought to himself. However, this proved that he was not simply facing normal humans. A normal human would have instantly died when he smashed them against the wall like that, meaning only one thing. Enhanced humans, he said aloud, raising a brow in curiosity. He had never expected to come across such humans. But his curiosity soon turned into anger when he understood that these humans were experimented upon. It now made sense why they felt dead. They had no mind of their own and seemed to only care about one purpose, and that is to eliminate the enemy in front of them, not caring about themselves. How despicable! He couldn't help but be disgusted at whoever is responsible for creating such abominations. While he was having an inner monologue with himself, the enhanced soldiers had fully surrounded him with their swords in hand. He then noticed their light swords changing color from their usual white to a darker red. He felt a small chill now coming from the blade. Dragon Slayer. Although weak, he could definitely feel a dragon-slaying property oozing off that blade. Somehow, these soldiers were able to change the property of their blades to suit the situation. It would seem that they are not as mindless as he first thought, although he still wondered whether it was an ability infused within them or within the swords. He pushed those thoughts aside for now, as he still had a battle to finish. However, due to their regeneration, he either had to deliver a blow that they could not recover from or destroy their body entirely. He possessed a lot of abilities in his arsenal that could do the trick. However, he had to be very careful because if he unleashes too much power, he could easily collapse the building. Issei would be protected thanks to his holy sphere, but his friends above would definitely be caught in the crossfire, something he really wanted to avoid. Maybe I should have told them to stay back, he thought to himself, although he was pretty sure that would have been a futile effort. Short of incapacitating Matsuda, there was no way to prevent him from coming here to rescue Issei, and there was no way to prevent Rias and the others to come and help. In that case, let's try this. Glacial wave sphere made of blue flames appeared on the ground surrounding Issei and then shot outwards, causing anything it touched to be turned to solid ice. The fallen angels were able to dodge the attack by taking flight. However, the same could be said for the enhanced humans. They had all charged towards him, hoping to land a simultaneous assault. However, that charge prevented them from being able to defend themselves against his attacker. They were turned into ice sculptures. In what seemed like a moment, the entire room was encased in solid ice. The only place that was spared was Issei, who was protected by his barrier. Up in the air, the fallen angels witnessed, in disbelief, at the power displayed by this single entity. In one move, he practically eliminated all of their army. Not even the enhanced soldiers given to them by their collaborator fared any better than the exorcists, and they knew that they were way stronger than the common human, yet to see them dealt with so easily was unbelievable. They could not stop their bodies from trembling at the overwhelming might this dragon possessed. Their first instinct was to run away, but they didn't even know if they could even escape his wrath. All of his attacks were executed in the blink of an eye. Metal was erased before they even knew what happened. Teleporting out of there required a few seconds, but even those seconds might as well have been hours with how quick he appeared to be. In their minds, they already knew. Their lives were entirely in his hands, and it did not seem he would spare them any mercy. Now, it's your turn, fallen angels, they heard Issei state. They looked back to him and noticed his gaze directed straight at them. Wait. Please spare our lives. You will give up on our plans and will leave this place this instant. I swear it. Just please let us live, I beg you, shrieked a horrified Rainier, begging Issei to spare their lives. Her fellow comrades sharing her sentiments. Unfortunately, it did nothing but anger Issei even more. You dare have the nerve to ask me to spare your miserable lives when you were going to kill Issei without a second thought. You messed with my friend, and for that you will pay dearly, so no, you will receive no such mercy from me, wench. Like I told you before, I plan to annihilate all of you, stated an enraged Issei with clenched teeth. His fangs could be spotted, and balled fists. He gave them a piercing glare that scared the living hell out of them. With movements ever so gradual, he stepped forward, coming closer towards them. Yet, to their perspective, with every step he took, his form seemed to be growing in size, increasing to no ends, to the point that his gigantic form outgrew them even in the air, taking a more identifiable appearance. In their minds, in front of them was the outline of a massive dragon with piercing glowing eyes, promising them nothing short of death. Overtaken by fear, they did not even notice Issei charging up his next attack. Amaterasu suddenly, Donashik and Kalawarna's wings lit ablaze as black flames consumed them. They both screamed in agony as they plummeted to the ground without their wings. Being burned alive, they tried to put out the flames by dousing themselves with water spells, yet the flames continued to burn strong as it slowly started to spread throughout their entire body. When that didn't work, they tried rolling around the ground like a dog, but all that did was make the flame spread even faster, causing them excruciating pain. It's useless. Those are the flames of purgatory. They will continue to burn until they have reduced their target to nothing but ashes. Their screams eventually came to a halt as the flame consumed them. They shared the same fate as their other fallen angel comrade, as Rainier stared at the ashes that was once her comrades. Issei then suddenly disappeared from view. But, by the grace of God, that she had abandoned, her survival instincts somehow managed to kick in just in time to barely, by the skin of her teeth, dodge from Issei's fist. However, the shockwave caused by the force of his fist was enough to send her spiraling towards the wall. Ah! She screamed in pain as she coughed up blood. She definitely suffered a few crack ribs from the impact. She was reduced to this from nothing but the mere force of his strike. She could not believe it. Oh, you actually managed to barely dodge that one. Gotta say, I am impressed that you were able to manage that. Issei was honestly surprised that she managed to pull off such a feat. Survival instincts are never to be underestimated, it seems. Let's see if you can pull that off a second time, he said, preparing to finish her off. However, before he could so, a few more soldiers sprang out of hiding, hoping to kill him in a surprise attack. It seemed that they were biding their time until they found the right moment to strike. Unfortunately, this opponent was beyond their league. I told you, it's useless, he said as he stretched his arms side and blasted the incoming soldiers with a wave of fire, incinerating them into ash. However, those few seconds of distraction seemed to have been enough for Rainier to bolt towards the door leading upstairs. It was pure luck that Issei blasted her near the entrance of the room, so with adrenaline coursing through her veins, she bolted towards the door when his attention shifted to his attackers trying to escape with her life. Seeing his prey escape, Issei deliberated whether or not to pursue, but decided not to. He remembered the layout of the building, so the only way out for her to take were the staircase that led upstairs, so he would let the others take care of her. He was pretty sure Rias would want to take care of the fallen angel who harmed Matsuda herself, and she was too injured to do anything anyways. Taking a deep breath, he shifted his attention back to his primary goal and walked towards the protected Asia. When he was near, he dispelled his holy sphere and destroyed the artifact she was tied to, catching her in his arms when she fell. He checked to see if she had any injuries, but luckily, it seemed she was merely unconscious, making him breathe a sigh of relief. Looking at her reminded him of a certain promise he made to a certain someone, and he was glad he was able to keep it. I was able to keep my promise. Sensei, he thought to himself as he looked up at the ceiling, letting his mind wander. Rainier was running down the halls, busy escaping with her life from that despicable abomination. She was clearly out of breath already, but pure adrenaline and fear for her life kept her moving, wanting to get the hell out of there. All of her plans, her army, her allies, completely destroyed in an instant by one entity. She needed to warn her superiors about this dragon. Maybe they would be able to deal with this thing. They had no idea that such a powerful entity resided in this city. All she had been told was that this city was governed by the little sister of the current Devil King Lucifer, but that she was no threat. Despite the additional forces given to them, they were not prepared to deal with such an almighty being. Running up the stairs, she finally arrived to the altar room. Fried, we need, to get out right now. She tried to catch her breath as she called out to Fried. However, when she received no answer, she started to worry when she heard a feminine voice. If you are looking for that stray exorcist, he ran away with his tail between his legs just a moment ago. Phew, good help is so hard to find these days, don't you think? Rainier looked up to see the crimson-haired Princess Rias Gremory in front of her. Next to her was her queen Akeno, who was still sporting her shrine maiden outfit. Kibar was standing in front of her, ready to protect his king from all dangers. All around her, she could see that the bodies of the remaining exorcists that were stationed here were dealt with. Pretty much another massacre. Some bodies were sliced, some crushed, others electrocuted and singed, while others were simply erased by the power of destruction of the Gremory. For the Kibar vs Fried fight, it just pretty much went like in the anime or light novel, so I didn't want to repeat it. Short version: Kibar and Fried sword fight. He uses his sacred gear to create a blade of darkness that sucks Fried's light sword, kicks his ass, and Fried smoke bombs and escapes. LOL, all of a sudden, she felt someone struck a blow behind her, causing her to crash on the floor in front of Rias. She turned her head to notice that it was a short white-haired girl who struck her from behind. With the injuries she suffered a while ago from Issei, she could barely move anymore. She was trapped with no way out. I'm honestly surprised that you were able to escape from Issei-kun. He did not seem like the type of guy to allow such a thing. But at the very least, it allows me the chance to pay you back for all the harm you caused to my adorable pawn. So, I should thank him when I see him next time for giving me this opportunity. Rias said as she casually made her way forward to the lying fallen angel. Rainier slowly looked up in contempt, still in pain from all her injuries. Damn you and that abomination of a dragon, she sneered at Rias, who did not seem to care. However, one person clearly was affected by what she said. Rainier instantly got electrocuted by a lightning bolt shot from Akeno, who was extremely angry that this fallen angel had the audacity to insult her boyfriend. Her hatred for fallen angels spurred on once more, making her remember why she hated them. How dare you insult Issei, you wench, she said with clear disdain in her voice. This was probably the first time everyone had seen Akeno this angry, when she is usually very elegant and gentle. Even during her bouts of sadism, they had never seen such raw anger coming from her. Although since this is concerning Issei, it made sense. Eventually, the torture ended. her body twitching in agony as she could barely move. Is this where it all ends, was the thought currently occupying her mind. No, she didn't want to die here, not after all the sacrifices she made to get this far. Any last words, fallen angel, before I make you disappear? Rias said in a cold tone filled with killing intent. Rainier was really scared, not knowing what to do. That was when she spotted Matsuda located a bit behind Rias, who seemed to be a bit conflicted. That is normal considering that she was his ex-girlfriend when she acted as Yuama. Matsuda-kun, please help me. Matsuda reacted simply because that was the voice she used when she was acting as his girlfriend. This devil is trying to kill me. Please save me. I actually had a fun time when I was with you. I still have the armband you bought for me. It was a wonderful gift that I treasure with all my heart. She somehow was able to lift her arm, revealing the band Matsuda bought for her during their date, trying to emphasize what she was saying. She looked at him with pleading eyes and continued, please don't let her hurt me, Matsuda-kun. I love you, so please save me, she pleaded to Matsuda, who had a very hard time thinking straight. He clenched his fist so hard that blood could be seen dripping from his fist as his nail penetrated his skin. All he could do was remember the words she told him at the end of their date on that fateful day. Will you die for me? She was his first ever girlfriend. He really did try his best. He made so many plans regarding his first date. He remembered how super excited he was and how he thanked God for giving him this one moment. He even went as far as thinking about a possible future with her. He was fantasizing about spending many Christmas and Valentine's Day together like a love-stricken idiot. He was even prepared to destroy all his perverted magazines, which was a big thing considering what a massive pervert he was. Yet, it all came crashing down that day as more flashbacks of Rainier's vision and words came to bear. I don't want a filthy low-class devil like you even saying my name. That day, her words shattered his heart into a million little pieces. Ha ha ha. Yeah, it was indeed a very royal date. Thanks to it, I was really bored. Then after completely destroying his heart, she then killed him on the spot, leaving him to die, as he was bleeding with a hole in his chest. It was certainly the most devastating day of his life. At some point, he realized that he started crying as a few tears were flowing down his face. He then turned towards his king. Bachao. I am really at my limit here, so please. Hearing that, Rainier's expression froze. Rias nodded. How dare you try to play with Matsuda's heart after what you did to him? I will not forgive you for that, so, goodbye fallen angel. Rainier. Rias conjured an orb of destruction and shot it at Rainier. Was all Rainier could say before the demonic power shot erased her and left nothing of the fallen angel except a few black feathers that seemed to sway in the wind. Matsuda could not help but look away from his ex-girlfriend's remains, but he understood she was evil and thus needed to die. At least now it was all over. He felt a hand brushing on his shoulder and looked to see it was Rias, who wanted to see if he was okay. He returned a smile to let her know it was, which seemed to calm her down. Ah, I see you guys are finished here. Everyone turned towards the newly appeared voice and noticed it was Issei, but his appearance took them for a loop. All over his body were crimson scales, a deeper red than even Rias' hair. Reptilian slits replaced his eyes, and even more noticeable were the two large dragon wings springing out of his back. They were easily 2 meters in length. If they had any doubts about him being a dragon, they were quickly discarded now that they had a full view of him now. Even Akeno was a bit surprised. In the past she used to see him partially transform himself into a dragon, but this time, she could feel the aura of dominance oozing through him and she liked it. Everyone else simply stared at Issei's features until Matsuda looked at what he was holding. Aisha. Is she all right? Asked a very worried Matsuda. Indeed, in his arms was little Aisha who they came to rescue. He checked her and was relieved to see her chest rising up and down, meaning she was simply asleep, but most importantly, she was alive, allowing him to breathe a major sigh of relief. She is all right. I already dealt with all the enemies below us and made sure she was safe the entire time. She is just unconscious at the moment, and should wake up very soon. Issei's voice slowly returned to his original one as his scales slowly dissipated, his eyes returned to his human ones and his wings retracted back into his back. He then walked towards an untouched bench and laid Aisha there, letting her rest until she wakes up. You fool, so like I thought, you let that fallen angel escape, didn't you? Rias giggled as she posed her question, making Issei answer her with a shrug of his shoulders. Meh, I figured you would want to deal with her considering all the trouble she did to your peerage and in your territory. Of course, she was already injured from our scuffle, so there was no chance for her to escape even if she wanted to. Issei said as he turned around to face them properly. By the way, catch Kiba. Issei took something out of his pocket and threw it at Kiba, who caught it thanks to his reflexes. He looked at the object tossed to him and saw that it looked to be a sword handle. He looked to Issei hoping for an explanation for the item presented to him, which he gave soon after. That is the weapon that the soldiers downstairs were using, and I was hoping you could shed some light on what it is. At first, I thought it was simple light sword like the ones the exorcists were using, but during our battle, I noticed that they were able to change the characteristics of the sword from one of light into a dragon slayer. I was surprised, but since I was in the middle of a battle, I moved it to the back of my head and focused on my fight. I don't know if it is a special property of the sword itself or if it was an ability those soldiers possessed, so after the end of the fight, I grabbed one to bring to you and see if you could explain this little conundrum, since you are the expert swordsman here. Kiba smiled and nodded. Very well, let me see what I find. Kiba began inspecting the handle to see what he could find out about it. It was beautifully crafted, he had to admit, even for an enemy sword, but that doesn't matter. Like his sword master taught him, it isn't the weapon who is evil but the wielder who uses it for malicious purposes that is evil. Seeing that there is no switch to activate the sword, he theorized that the weapon activated with one's power, so he pushes his demonic power into the blade and lo and behold, a blade of light emerged from the handle. Now he wanted to test whether or not the blade had the ability to change properties or it was simply an ability used by other people, but once again there was no switch, so he focused strongly on the sword, picturing a dragon slayer. Sure enough, the blade of light changed properties as it changed into a deep red color. Issei frowned a bit. Aisha's body seemed to have shifted a little in her sleep, almost as though she could feel an ominous presence in front of her, and Matsuda, being part dragon thanks to his boosted gear, took a step back from the ominous vibe the sword seemed to ooze. However, this was all the confirmation Kiba needed to make an assessment. Fascinating, it appears that this handle has similar abilities to my sacred gear. Kiba said, only to notice Issei raise a brow in confusion. He then recalled that Issei did not know that he had a sacred gear and decided to rectify that. Oh, it's true, you don't know. My apologies, Issei-kun. Anyways, just like Matsuda-kun as well as Aisha, if I recall her name correctly, I also have a sacred gear. It is called Sword Birth and it allows me to create as many demonic swords as I want, and I can even alter the attribute the sword according to my will. Kiba started explaining, then conjured a sword of ice in one hand and a regular demonic sword in his hand to demonstrate his ability. As you can see, I can create any kind of demonic swords at will. I can even give my swords certain property depending on the circumstances. For instance, during my fight against the stray exorcist Freed, I created a sword of darkness that swallows light in order to counter his light swords, and that is how I managed to defeat him. So basically, depending on the opponents and circumstances, I can alternate between swords to fit the situation. That is in a nutshell what my sacred gear is. Kiba finished his explanation as he dispelled the two swords he conjured earlier. Whistle. Wow, that is indeed a very useful sacred gear you possess, Kiba. In fact, its function seems similar to my flames. This time it was Kiba who raised a brow, but before he said anything, it was his master that asked the question he wanted. Really, how so? Rias asked, curious to learn of Issei's abilities. Well, unlike Kiba, whose power revolves around swords, mine are based entirely on my flames. Issei lighted up his fists as bright orange flames emerged from his hands to demonstrate, then continued. Not to come across as arrogant or anything, but I have perfect control over the use of my flames, and through lots of training have managed to develop multiple abilities using these very flames. You've already seen one of them when I protected you from that stray devil's desperate attack last time. That ability is known as Flame Barrier, which basically, as its name suggests, create a barrier made of dragon fire that protects me or anyone I wish from attacks, granted they aren't stronger than me. Any weak attacks that even come into contact with my barrier instantly get reduced to ash, like you've seen previously. Anyway, I created a variety of different abilities, but by complete accident, I discovered another aspect of my power that I never even dreamed of. It seems I possessed the ability to actually change the property of my flames. His right flame suddenly changed from an orange hue to a blue color, surprising his friends, but none more so than Rias, because she learned how tough it was to manage that. She approached her hand towards the flame and realized that instead of heat, she felt a chill. Wow, the fire is cold. I can't believe you were able to do that. During my education, it's been said that something like that was practically impossible to do even for experts. It's amazing, Rias remarked. Issei agreed with her statement. You are correct, Rias. According to my shishao, even experts would find it difficult to accomplish such a level of mastery that I have done. Plus, there is also the fact that fire is perhaps one of the most volatile elements to control, and to be able to change its property is something even gods find it hard to do, and let me tell you, it was not easy training these flames. Many times, I've had my flames blow up in my face when I tried experimenting with them. If I had been an average person, I would have probably died during the explosion. Anyways, it took me almost 7 years of grueling training to gain complete mastery over my flames, but it was well worth the price. But I believe we are getting off topic here. You were saying that the swords possess the same properties as your sacred gear, Kiba. Issei dispelled his flames and turned his attention back to Kiba. Ah yes, Issei-kun. This sword possesses the ability to change its properties based on the user's will. It truly is a fascinating weapon. However, I believe it is nothing but a prototype device, he stated, causing Issei to tilt his head in confusion. What do you mean? How can you know that this is a prototype? Issei asked his question. It's better if I showed you, Kiba answered as he used his power and activated the sword to form a light sword. Then he deactivated it and tossed it back at Issei, who caught it in his hand. Now you try activating it. Simply put your aura into the device and it will activate, Kiba explained to Issei. Issei followed his instructions and poured his aura into the handle, and lo and behold, a light sword was created. After carefully examining the result, Issei quickly understood what Kiba was getting at. They have the same power output. Issei said to himself, but loud enough for Kibar to hear, which caused him to smile. Exactly. Normally, a high-class sword would usually draw power from its wielder and would be strong or weak depending on its user. However, this sword seems to have a set limit for the amount of power it can use. I believe it was most likely done to balance out the ability to change its property, so due to this fact, it will not be able to surpass an ordinary sword of a single attribute. Kind of like a jack of all trades but master of none. This is why I believe that this is just a prototype version of the sword. I am pretty sure that my sacred gear could easily overpower anything this sword produces, even though our abilities are similar. Whoever created this must have sent them here as a test run to see their effectiveness in battle. That's as far as my observation goes. If we want to know more, we should probably give this to Ajuka-sama, since he is the technological expert in such matters. The last part was directed at Rias, who nodded at her knight's suggestion. Good idea, Kibar-kun. I'll ask my brother to notify Ajuka-sama of our findings and, with any luck, he might be able to trace this device back to its creator. If anyone can do it, it's probably him. Issei nodded to Rias. Very well, in that case, I will leave this device in your care. Issei said. Whoever created these devices is one hell of a genius. It really is a bit scary to think that a man of such intellect could possibly be an enemy. Kibar added. All we can do is wait and see. Rias stated, thereby ending the conversation. Well, now that this is done and over with. Akeno stepped close to Issei and suddenly pinched his cheek as hard as she could. Issei was blindsided and couldn't react or brace himself at all, so he took the full brunt of this cheek abuse. Ow, ow, oh, oi, Akeno. That hurts. Issei exclaimed. It really did hurt as he rubbed his cheek. Well, that was for leaving us and going on ahead. What if something happened to you? I was very worried, she told him with a sour look. Everyone started to giggle at Issei's plight. But time was of the essence, so I had to hurry to save Aisha, he tried to explain himself to her. He really was pressed for time and needed to save Aisha as quick as he could, although he couldn't blame her for worrying. She just loved him that much and was scared to lose him. He did feel bad about it though, so he wanted to make it up to her. I'm really sorry, Akeno. What can I do to make it up to you? I will do anything you want. He proposed to her, instantly sparking a reaction from her, but not in a good way. Ara, anything you say. Akeno said. Her tone sounded very excited. Her eyes possessing a glimmer of mischievous intent as her inner sadist seemed to rise up, scaring Issei a bit as he took a step back. Within reason, of course, Shit, he totally forgot that his girlfriend was a massive sadist and he had given her the green light to do anything she wanted. He may have told her that he would do whatever she wanted within reason, but there is no way he could deny her anything, really. And he knew that she knew that he knew that, which is why her smile did not decrease one bit when he told her his response. He needed to think of something to save himself. On the side, he could see Rias barely able to contain her laughter, Kibar giving him a sympathetic smile, Koneko acting like she usually does, and Matsuda seemed to have hidden himself behind a bench, scared of Akeno when she acts like this. Oh come on, you were willing to dive straight into the enemy headquarters to save Aisha, yet you are frightened by something like this, thought Issei when he saw Matsuda cowering behind a bench like a scared chicken, which is kind of ironic considering that he too was scared of his girlfriend at the moment. A prime example of the pot calling the kettle black. Oh I know, how about I take you on a date tomorrow or whenever you want? He hoped his suggestion for a date would calm her down, and it seemed to work. The glint that was in her eyes seemed to have vanished and replaced with a look of happiness. A date with Issei-kun. I guess that will do, for now, she said, making Issei breathe a sigh of relief, happy to have dodged that bullet. Damn it, Auntie Shuri, why did you have to pass on that tray to your daughter? It was the first time in his life that he mentally cursed his aunt. Issei sighed. Nothing he could do about that. Oh well, as they say, life isn't fair, and it seems that holds true even to the son of dragon gods. MMMH. That small noise alerted everyone that Aisha was starting to wake up from her slumber. Matsuda quickly removed himself from his previous hiding spot and moved closer towards Aisha, having been worried about her. Everyone turned their attention to Aisha, who slowly rose up, rubbing her eyes before opening them. She then glanced around in confusion, not understanding what happened, before she caught sight of two people she recognized alongside many other individuals she did not. Matsuda-san, Issei-san, what happened? She muttered, unsure of the current circumstances. Issei smiled. Well, what do you remember, Aisha? He decided to ask. I remember Matsuda-san taking me to visit many places, then we ended up strolling to the park. Afterwards, Rainier-san showed up, injuring Matsuda-san, who tried to protect me. I think she then teleported, but then everything is blank for me. She recounted as much as she could remember, getting a nod from Issei. I see. Well, to keep it short, you were basically kidnapped by the fallen angels who wanted to extract the healing sacred gear within you for their own purposes. We all then stormed the building, guns blazing, and after taking care of the enemies, we managed to save you from their ritual, and now here we are. Issei tried to add a little humor, which seemed to work, as Aisha giggled a bit but then got up from the bench she was in and bowed to everyone. In that case, thank you all very much for saving me. I am truly grateful, she sincerely thanked them. Although Issei said all that, he really is the one who saved you. We just dealt with the enemies up here while he took care of all the fallen angels by himself, so he is the one who deserves your thanks, Matsuda responded, looking down with a bit of shame. He really wanted to do more, but, in the end, he left it all up to Issei. That is not true, Matsuda. If anything, you were the first to take the initiative to come here to rescue her, even if you had to do it all by yourself. Even though I would have gone to save her, I probably would have taken my time, which may have led to different circumstances, but your initiative is what made me follow you. In addition, by taking care of the enemies here, you allowed me to reach Aisha that much faster, which allowed me to interrupt their ritual before they could extract Aisha's sacred gear. You all deserve as much credit as me in saving her, so chin up, pal. Issei tried to reassure Matsuda to the best of his abilities. I still want to thank you all for saving me, no matter what. Aisha gave them all a sincere smile. After a moment of silence, Rias decided to speak up. Very well, if we are all done here, it is time to go home, she said, earning a nod from everyone as they exited the church. In another place, several figures could be seen talking to each other. Oh my, it seems I can no longer get a read from the soldiers I sent as reinforcements for your subordinates, meaning they have most likely been killed. How unfortunate. I spent quite a while on their modifications, but oh well, at least I received some data on the prototype sword I created. Quite pleased on that, so it is not a total loss, said one of the male figures, although he seemed to have a very feminine voice. One of his colleagues raised a brow at his discovery. Killed, you say? Are you certain? It isn't only your soldiers but also a lot of stray exorcists as well as fallen angels that have been sent to that place. For all of them to have been dealt with is something I find very hard to believe. Oiko Kabiel, Didn't you say that only Rias Gremory and Sinusitri were located at that place? They should not possess the strength to be able to deal with a force of such numbers, said a very worried male who addressed the third person present, who was revealed to be the fallen angel Carder Kokabiel. Kokabiel simply shrugged. Calm yourself, Valpa. They must have sent their own reinforcements to aid the two brats. Even though they are weak, they are still siblings of two devil kings. No way would they let anything happen to them. I'll admit, it was a small miscalculation on my part, but in the grand scheme of things, it matters not. Luckily, they provided enough of a distraction for us to retrieve 3 pieces of Excalibur, so in all, it was not for naught. I still have plenty of available subordinates, just as there are still plenty of stray exorcists who have joined your cause. By the way, Kokabiel turned to his other collaborator, taking something out of his pocket and handing it to him. Here are the blueprints you wanted on Azazel's machine. It was a bit tricky to get them, so I hope it was well worth it. Also, how goes the retrieval of the 4th piece from the Vatican's? The unknown figure gladly accepted the blueprints from Kokabiel and began examining it with excited eyes. Ah, so these are the blueprints for the sacred gear remover machine. How fascinating. I can't wait to build one with even more efficiency. Also, to answer your second inquiry, I have successfully retrieved the Excalibur blessing piece, although it came at the loss of many of my followers. I have to say, that Grisel Darkwater is a very dangerous exorcist. As expected of the brave saint of the Seraph Gabriel. If it weren't for her, it would have gone more smoothly. However, thanks to my brilliance, we have the 4th piece in our possession, which should arrive here in about a week. Although, do you think your boss is aware of your betrayal? He asked Kokabiel, who crossed his arms. HMF, I have no doubt that he probably already suspects me. He may be a pacifist, but he is not an idiot, and with Rainier having already stolen the artifact, he will definitely be aware of it, but that is of no cause for concern. Even if he knows, he would not do anything due to his fear of restarting a great war. What a fool. I can't believe we elected a pacifist to lead us. Scorned Kokabiel, wearing a very angry expression. I also have a piece of good news to impart. My spies have informed me that heaven will send 2 exorcists here to investigate the theft of the pieces, but the best news is that both wield 2 other pieces of Excalibur. How generous of heaven to send them right at our doorsteps. Finally, my research on holy swords will finally bear fruit, said a very ecstatic Valpa. Michael is just as much of a pacifist as Azazel is. He wouldn't dare send his angels here for fear of bringing war to their doorsteps. How about the location of the last piece? Any luck finding it? Kokabiel asked his colleagues. Unfortunately, not. The last and strongest piece, Excalibur Ruler, had been missing ever since its creation, and no one seemed to have found where it had gone. Valpa answered. Oh my, I haven't had any success either in locating the final piece. Whoever is in possession of it has done a marvelous job in hiding it all these years. A pity too. The experiment would have been a lot easily had we had all pieces assembled. Oh, what a sight that would have been. It matters not. Even without the final piece, we have what we need to make our plan come to fruition. How long before the rest of the preparations are accomplished? Kokabiel asked, wanting to know how long before they can begin their objective. Azazel may be a fool, but he is no idiot. Kokabiel had no doubt that Azazel will soon make a move against him. Even if he can't intervene, he will probably find some way to warn the devils of his arrival, so they could not afford to waste too much time. Even he isn't stupid enough to believe that his power is enough to face the combined might of the four Maris by himself. He will simply take them down one by one, and when his plan succeeds, he will finally get the chance to prove that fallen angels stand superior above all other races. I've already started assembling many stray exorcists to join our cause, and I am in the midst of analyzing the pieces of Excalibur, so, in my calculations, I should be done in a couple of weeks. Valper explained his side to Kokabiel, who then turned his focus to the other person in the room, who simply kept his cheery attitude. Oh my! Are you doubting my ability to get things done? Well, don't worry, everything is proceeding according to schedule, so you have nothing to worry about. Good. Oh, and before I forget, I believe I have something that may be of use to you. Kokabiel removed what seemed to be a small bag from his pocket and handed it to his companion, who wondered what he was given until he opened it and noticed a golden glow coming from the articles within, and for the first time, became truly surprised. Is this what I think it is? Kokabiel smirked. Yes, indeed. Those are scales of one of the 5 Dragon Kings, Fafnir. For some reason, Fafnir formed a pact with Azazel and is taking part in aiding him with some of his crazy inventions. These scales were given to Azazel as part of their agreement. Unfortunately, I could only snatch a few of them without drawing attention, but these should be enough for those new toys of yours, right? You could use them for the base of your project as long as it does not cause any delays, Kokabiel told his associate, who seemed to be over the moon with his gift. Of course, Kokabiel. Who do you think you are talking to? It's true it would take a normal scientist months to accomplish what we need, but with my abilities and these, he lifted to reveal his primary tool before continuing, you can be sure I will finish everything on time. Plus, with these added to my collection, I will be able to further improve my experiments, reaching new heights that no scientist has ever dreamed of reaching. I have to say, this partnership of ours has indeed been very fruitful for me. As long as you come through with your part, then that is all that matters. In any case, both of you let me know when your matters are settled so we may begin the next phase of our plans. It's only a matter of time before Azazel and the others figure out what we are up to. Kokabiel warned them. Very well, they both answered at the same time. If there is nothing else, then you are all dismissed. Kokabiel waved his hand, thereby ending the meeting. It is only a matter